Confirm. And oh yeah, but like I have to sign up for that stuff and like try to make money on TikTok. I don't really know what I'm focused on right now. I'm just kind of I'm hosting debates and yeah, building my following on TikTok, and then I guess eventually I'm going to start trying to figure out ways to monetize it, but um
Cool.
that should be, and yeah, I could advertise like Star Wars lightsabers. I could advertise like cameras on TikTok, on the TikTok shop. There's a lot of stuff. Okay, cool. I have it set up. It's good to go.
Just
Okay.
trying to learn like how to do it myself. I think I signed up and it let me on. I just had to like give my ID and like verify and give my information, and it let me like sign up for it. I have the option, so I tried to use it,
Okay.
and because I had a static image on my screen, and I wasn't like I didn't have my camera on, and I wasn't like engaging according to TikTok. I got like a restriction on my green screen access on my lives, which is weird.
Oh, weird. Yeah, I don't know how that happens. What's up, Catholic? What you got for me?
Hello, are you the same guy that put out a video that was critiquing the precept tag argument for Darth Darkins?
I don't think that's me. I only have like one video of Darth Dawkins, and that was like a while ago.
It was some guy that was walking while he was speaking, walking outside.
I think like
Saul. That was
yeah,
Placid Saul Severe. Yeah.
yeah, but like I did make a video.
It might be Paul. Like
Yeah,
Paul.
yeah, there was a video I made in response to Q Top, and I was like walking outside, like I was running, and I was like sweaty and shit. But
So you're an atheist?
oh no, I'm an agnostic.
Do you invoke, with regards to things that you invoke every day in your daily life, do you invoke God as being necessary with regards to those things?
Why?
Um, oh no, yeah, okay, so like I see where this is going, but I'll play along.
Yeah, for the sake of argument,
Um,
he's an atheist.
but no, I don't invoke God and those things.
Okay, so you make a choice not to do so. Because you could choose to do so, but you make a choice not to do so. So
How
that's
do
an
you
implicit
invoke God?
denial. Tiny, I'm trying to speak to the individual. Okay,
Yeah,
can you
let me
control
handle it
Hey,
yourself,
for.
Coco,
please?
can you ask him like how do we invoke God? Maybe.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, let me handle him for right now while I play Fortnite.
Yeah, so that's an implicit denial of God. So you're not in a neutral position. Now I can prove God exists if you'd like to hear the evidence.
Not necessarily. I
You
wouldn't
don't
say
want. You
like.
said you don't want to hear the evidence.
Oh no, like I would say I'm not denying God per se. I'm just kind of saying like I don't really know if God exists. I'm open to the possibility that God could exist, but I'm not saying like God doesn't exist.
Oh,
I
well,
mean
you
like
didn't hear
well,
what I said. I said that because you're refusing to make the choice, because you could make the choice to invoke a God with regards to all things that you invoke in your daily life, but you're choosing not to, whereby I choose to do so. So it's
oh
not a
so like
neutral position that you're holding. So it's not a direct denial of God, an explicit denial of God, but it is an implicit denial of a God because you're making the choice not to invoke God with regards to all things that you're perceiving to exist.
okay, so what would be required of a neutral position?
Well, there is no neutral position. You either, with regards to all things that you perceive to exist, you're either going to invoke God as being necessary or not invoke God as being necessary.
So someone couldn't say like I don't really know.
Well, if somebody says they don't know, they're withholding judgment, right? So that
Yeah.
if they're withholding judgment, they're choosing not to invoke God as being necessary. So it leads them to the same position whereby they're still invoking things as with regards to the things they're perceiving as not asserting God to be necessary for those things. They're withholding judgment on that.
How does this
So it's
logic
still
work?
not a neutral position.
How does
Wait,
this
like,
logic work for someone that's just like deist
Anyway,
or pantheist?
wait,
It doesn't
like,
work.
wait,
anyway,
whenever you're saying like invoking things, what do you mean by that?
yeah, anything that you perceive to exist, like the pot on the stove, or the clouds in the sky, or the stars in the heavens.
Okay.
Follow it all.
Now, I could prove that God exists. Do you want to hear the evidence for God?
Sure.
Okay.
But I mean, I don't really, I don't really think like, I mean, in regards to like all the discussions I've had, like I don't think anyone can prove or disprove that God exists. I think like your case is more like you're making a probability case for whether
No,
God
it's
exists or
not a
not.
probability case.
Wait, before we even go
Okay,
into
I
all,
mean, you
like,
can go ahead and.
wait, Coco,
It's
wait.
not a probability.
Is
It's a
it okay?
fact case,
It's
a
okay to ask a
factual
question real
case.
quick before
In
you
other
go
words,
into the
there
argument?
could be no other case other than that it is God.
Wait, before we go into that, I just have a quick question. Like, if Coco was some kind of deist or pantheist, how does he invoke God in that case?
I don't know if Bobby's asked me a question. I don't know what you asked, but
Like, yeah, if Coco was like a pantheist or some deist, right, how does he invoke God in this case?
if Coco is a pantheist, well
Or some
then
kind of or
Coco
some
would
kind
be
of
going
deist?
ahead invoking the pantheistic God,
Like,
whatever God it
yeah,
is that
what
they're
does that
claiming
mean
is
though? What would he do? What would that?
responsible for. Hello, I'm answering your question. I don't know why you're talking over me.
Okay.
So the individual, whatever God is the cause for everything that he perceives to exist, he would be invoking that God. I don't know what attributes he points to or attributes to that God. For example, the Muslims attribute certain attributes to their God, whereas the Christians attribute certain attributes to their God.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, he just says that God is the universe. So he talks about some deistic random God. Like, how does that change the way he lives his life? I guess. Like, what's happening here?
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know what you're asking. I just answered your question. So
No,
okay, so
all
to the
you said
host,
that.
I can go ahead and prove God. Would you like to hear the evidence for God?
I mean, like,
Can
wait, Bobby,
I
are
say
you
something?
finished? With,
No,
are
no.
we?
This is such a weird. No, look, he's Coco is some pantheist or deist.
Bobby, I
Right.
already answered your question. I'm
No,
not
no.
going
Well,
to
you
continue
answered.
answering
Wait,
it.
hold
You
on.
answered
Would
to
Yeah,
the
host,
yeah.
would you
question.
like me to prove God exists or
No,
not?
no. Wait.
Well,
The
like,
Otherwise,
answer
I'll
to the
just move
question
on.
is just.
I would like you to answer what Bobby's
I already
saying, and
did
like,
answer
No,
it,
no, no,
like,
no.
and I'm not
No,
going to
no, you
continue
didn't.
answering it over and over again.
well, yeah, like,
All you
calm down
all
with
you did
the
was say.
sassiness.
Yeah,
There's
all
no
you did.
sassiness. I already said that
Wait,
I answered him.
Catholic.
There's
All
nothing
you
sassy
said.
about that. I'm
Let
just
me tell you.
stating the truth.
Let me
It's
refute.
insufficient.
Now, host, do you want me
No,
to allow
wait,
you
Catholic.
to hear the evidence? Do you want me to provide the evidence for God
Why
or
are you
no?
running?
Wait, wait, yeah, wait, hold
I'm
on,
not
yeah,
running. I'm still here.
wait,
I'm
hold
not
on.
running from anything.
Wait,
So the host,
wait,
I'm
everyone, wait,
here to prove God existence.
wait.
Do you want to hear the proof or
My
not?
mouth is opening and speaking right now.
Well, you
Hold
haven't answered
on.
my question yet.
Okay, I can start muting people if you want, but like
Well, you can mute me or
I'm
drop me if you want to run
talking.
away. I mean,
I'm talking, so you're gonna be quiet while I talk.
neutral
I'm trying
tactic
to
evasion.
control the live, right?
Host?
I'm the host. I'm controlling the live. Now, Bobby asked you a question, and it wasn't sufficient for him. So
Well, I
finish your
believe that it was
interaction.
sufficient.
Okay,
No.
well, cool. Well,
The host?
the
Wait, let me
person.
respond to that.
Wait, guys, I'm talking. The person you're talking to found your.
God or not, host. Otherwise, I'll move on.
Nah, I think I'm good. You can go ahead
Okay,
and drop.
goodbye. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Yeah, his answer for deist, pantheist God is that you attribute random properties. You just call it a universe. I don't know. They didn't. I guess he just didn't want it. I guess for whatever reason, he just probably wanted to talk to you in particular, Coco. That's all. He just wanted to talk to you in particular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm kind of done with that. Like, if you're gonna convert people to God, like, be patient and nice, and like, when someone asks you a question, and like it's not sufficient enough, your answer didn't work, right? I mean, people please have the kindness to be able to like break it down for them and like, go a couple steps further to make sure the person like understands what you're saying. Like, all these people are like watching Darth Dawkins and they think it's like cool and edgy to be like rude and disrespectful like Christians. Like, calm the fuck down and stop sucking off Darth Dawkins and like be like decent people with empathy, please. Like, it's so fucking weird.
Do you think it's gonna run like tags or something?
Yeah, he was gonna come in here and like run tag and try to be Darth Dawkins #2, and like that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I don't know why so many people are like a fan of him, and he's such a terrible person and like a bad faith interlocutor. So, just fucking wasting my time. But okay. Hey Joe, welcome to my channel. You got anything for me?
Yeah, I'd like to Can you explain what you mean by the first part of your question?
Okay, so so yeah, basically this is a question that's ran by my friend Trey. It is supposed to like get Christians in here, but yeah. So essentially, I'm asking like, why does the Christian God condone child rape, mass confusion, evil Christians, and all sorts of evil? When it comes to condone, I'm basically going to be defining it as, he stays idle and allows for things to happen. And if he didn't want things to happen, then he would like jump in and like prevent them from happening. So he's therefore like condoning these things to happen, and these things are apparently according to his will.
Okay.
So,
So the Bible does not advocate or condone any kind of rape.
well,
And I understand that it's a point to get somebody in there, but it's kind of misleading at that point.
well, yeah, like I'm not saying
And
the Bible.
condone
Wait,
and
hold on,
allow.
hold on. So I'm not saying the Bible condones it, right? I'm saying that like in society today, we see like thousands of people like suing the Roman Catholic Church because men, women, children, boys, and girls have been like raped and assaulted by Roman Catholic priests, and I don't really see like God doing anything, right, to prevent that or do anything to fix that whatsoever. So it seems as if like
What's in what? Look,
say what?
I grew up in a different generation than you probably did. Um, Violence was a big part of our lives back then. Problem
Yeah.
is that if we did something wrong, did we get our butt whooped right then and there, or did we have to wait?
Yeah, so like I
Okay,
agree
so
that yeah,
so
so
when you say condone and you say allow, those are two different things. The concepts are two different.
yeah, so my definition of condone is like he's staying idle and not doing anything to stop it. So
I
apparently it must be like this must be what like he basically wills these things to happen, or like he thinks that like this ought to happen, because if it ought not happen, then he would step in and do something to prevent it.
Do you have a kid?
Or what's the question?
Do you have a kid? Yeah, just I don't. If you do you know
Yeah,
anybody that has a kid?
no, I don't have a kid, but yeah, I guess I know a couple people who have kids.
Okay. Do you agree with their parenting method wholeheartedly? Whether you voice it or not, do you agree with it?
Yeah, but no, but like, how is this relevant to what I'm
Hey,
saying?
hold on, I'm getting there. Okay. If you were to have your own kid, and this is why I want you to look at somebody else's as well. If you raise your kid to be disrespectful and you allow it to happen, all right, you condone their actions. You allow them to be disrespectful and everything else. Can you get upset later on? Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Because you're their parent. Okay, but you allowed it to happen.
Yeah.
You didn't step in and stop it. As a person who, you may be around your friends that have kids or know people that have kids, and you're around those kids, and they're disrespectful to you. Do you stop it, or do you allow it to happen?
Depends.
No, you either do or you don't.
Well, yeah, like I
There's
think
there's times in the Bible where God steps in. Now, does He step in now? I have no idea. Okay.
wait, hold on. So like it's really contextual, right? So like if a kid is on the playground like messing around and doing something stupid, I mean like it's not really my right, or it's not my responsibility to like parent somebody else's kids. But like let's say I did have a kid and like someone's kid is like punching my kid in the face, then yeah, I'm probably gonna step in and like parent someone's kid. So like it really depends on the context.
You're right. Now, if you see a kid disrespecting someone, no, it's not your right. Okay, but if that kid, not your kid, comes up to you and starts disrespecting you, do you have a right to step in? Not your kid. Do you have a right?
Yeah,
Or
I'd
you
probably
allow it?
yeah, I'd probably get their parent and be like, you need to parent your kids. Yeah.
Okay, but here the thing is you're not attacking the problem. Now he may be doing the same thing. He may not be attacking the problem. He's coming at it from a different angle. We're not God.
Okay,
I'm
yeah,
not going to tell you I believe. I'm not going to tell you I don't. Okay, but I'm going to play devil's advocate against you just because it's a debate.
Okay, yeah. So how is this relevant to like, there were thousands of people who like sued the Roman Catholic Church for like schmexual assault, right?
I understand,
And
but your whole
God didn't really seem to do anything about those
your
things. He kind of like stood idle.
that's
Well,
your
like
context.
yeah, given in the Bible, right? If God wanted to stop something or something was supposed to happen in accordance to his will, like he would do plenty, right? To
Have
like
you
make
read the
sure that
Bible?
happened. I haven't read it cover to cover, but I know like some pieces of it.
All right. So do you know uh, the story of the Exodus? Okay, what happened before and what happened during. That's kind of an easy one. Everybody knows the Exodus.
Are you talking about? Yeah, the Exodus from Egypt.
Okay. Do you know why they went?
Um,
One guy sinned.
why they left Egypt?
No, when they went to Egypt, God told them, "Your descendants will be in Egypt for 400 years."
Yeah.
Okay. He told him, because you did this, this is what's going to happen. Okay. It wasn't right then and there, but it did happen. All right. Jeremiah's the same way. He kept telling Jeremiah being the prophet, hey, go tell the people they need to quit doing what they're doing, or this is going to happen.
Yeah.
Noah, the same way. He does it over and over and over again. Problem is that you want him to be accountable for our actions. You don't want to be accountable for your own. Now, I'm not saying you personally. I'm not saying you personally. All right, but those Roman Catholics are sick. Excuse my language, sick fucks. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody that goes after a kid is a sick fuck. Anybody that rapes anybody is a sick fuck. Sorry about the word. Sorry.
Say grape for TikTok.
Anybody that outside of. All right, so any kind of grape, any kind of smexual stuff that is in the way of violence is wrong. All right, first and foremost.
Yeah.
All right, and God doesn't condone that. And matter of fact, He makes references throughout the Bible that it shouldn't be done.
Well, how are you defining condone?
He doesn't condone. He doesn't allow that. It's not something that He wants to happen.
Oh yeah, so
okay. Here's where you're going to get it conflated. All right.
But really quick. Does grape happen in our society today?
Yes, but that doesn't mean that He allows it.
Wait, okay. What do you define allow?
Okay, allow for Him to say that you're not allowed to do it and to stop you completely would take away your freedom of choice.
Yeah.
Right? Freedom of choice being the phrase that is in the Bible, not free will.
Where in the Bible is freedom of choice mentioned verbatim?
Where in the Bible is free will?
That's my point.
He wants you to choose Him. He says, if you choose me, okay, that's freedom of choice.
Okay,
right?
So
He doesn't say you have the will to do whatever the hell you want, because you don't have that.
Yeah, so to clarify, God wants free will or freedom of choice, so therefore He doesn't stop people from graping people.
He's not going to stop it. That doesn't mean He allows it.
Yeah, so
He doesn't allow. And look, this is just coming from the Bible. What you do in your own time, that's on you. I don't care. All right, personally. All right, love you just the same. But He doesn't allow homosexuality. It's according to the Bible.
Okay,
right?
well, that's okay. Wait,
He doesn't allow
like,
it. But does it happen?
Okay, hold on. Like, we are jumping all over the place. We're talking about priests assaulting people, and now you're like making a jab at like the LGBTQ community.
No, I'm not trying to make a jab at them. I'm telling you
that point was so irrelevant to the conversation. Like, why did you even mention that? Like what point are you trying to make?
I'm not making a point to the LGBT community. I could care less what they do. All right.
So why say it?
If the Catholics, all right, and God, if God doesn't want it to happen, and the Catholics are supposed to follow the law or the rules of the Bible, why are they doing that? Okay, grape is wrong, but does He allow it? Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
If He doesn't stop it from happening, it doesn't mean that He wants it to happen.
Okay. So two things here. We gotta clarify our terms. So, what do you mean when you say condone? And
I already told you.
Okay, hold on. Let me do this. Let me just pull up the. Hold on. Let me just pull up like the dictionary definition of condone, because like that's basically what I'm referring to. So give me one sec. It's good. Give me one sec. If it will open for me.
Coco, while you're doing that, can I ask Joe a question?
Yeah, you can.
All right, Joe. I'm kind of curious, right? If a police officer, right, was to see like if a firefighter was to see like some house burning, right? Um, and there's someone in that house. Do you think what should the firefighter ought to do?
What should a firefighter ought to do? That's if they see somebody in the house, should they go in? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, so if this house is burning and they see someone in the house,
I think
what should a firefighter ought to do? Yeah.
they should make the best decision possible.
What do you think that best decision is?
Depends on the situation. If the house is fixing to come down, should they run in there and risk their own life and die too, or should they save their life and let the one fall?
Are you okay? What about then? Let's try with a police officer. If they say a police officer was to see crime about to happen, like a police officer say a grape and about to happen, what do you think the police officer should do in the situation?
If a grape is about to happen or is happening,
It's about to take place. Yeah. What should the police officer do with this knowledge?
supposed to stop it.
Why is that?
Because it's wrong.
Interesting.
Okay, so basically, when it comes to condone, I'm defining it as just like staying idle and doing nothing to stop something. But like if you go to the dictionary, right, it's going to be to accept and allow behavior that is considered morally wrong or offensive to continue.
But what is
So
morally?
Well, like,
We can go through definition after definition after definition.
well, yeah,
condone,
but like
condone is
that's
to sit
irrelevant.
idle.
Yeah, that's irrelevant.
According
So
to your
like
definition-
the point that I'm making is that God is watching all this grape happen, and He's choosing to sit and do nothing about it. That's basically the point that I've been making this entire time.
No, you're right.
Okay, yeah, so I'm right. So like,
Okay, I'm not going to deny that in your
Yeah.
eyes, yes, he is sitting idly by. Okay,
okay, yeah, good. So like
But
the
here's the
question
thing,
is
here's the
the
thing.
question is why is He
You-
doing that?
because he's not making a utopia.
So
He's
God
not
is
gonna stop
okay
it
with
because it's
people
up to-
getting raped?
No, he's not.
Okay, so why is He just like, because in the Bible He was doing like plenty of stuff, right, to prevent things, right? You were talking about the 400 Exodus. God sent plagues. God gave Moses the power to drop his stick on the ground, and it turned into a snake.
That was to get
right?
that was to get them out. That was him actively
Yeah,
getting
yeah,
involved.
yeah.
Yes,
So
that
if
was
God
flood.
wants to, yeah,
Noah's,
so
Noah's
yeah,
flood.
so-
Let's say it took.
So
let's
if
say it
God
took
wants to
1,000
end
years.
slavery, right? If God wants to end slavery, He'll split the Red Sea, He'll send plagues, so He'll give people the power to drop their sticks on the ground and have them turn into snakes, right? But when it comes to like people getting raped by Roman Catholic priests and thousands of people suing the Roman Catholic Church, God is just like allowing this to happen because He thinks, what? This
'Cause he-
is okay?
Let's come on, put words in his mouth.
I mean, but like, this is your burden, right? You have to explain to me why God is just allowing. That's the question, right? Why is God just sitting idly by while people get raped and they sue the Roman
So-
Catholic Church?
Okay, so you want a human viewpoint on a infinite being.
Yeah, that's the purpose of this live. That's the
You're
question
right.
up here. Like, why is
Okay,
God
the
allowing?
problem is that
So-
you're not. All right, so to be completely 100% honest with you, you're not going to get it. You're not going to get a satisfactory answer to your question. Here, however, if you were to listen to another viewpoint, you would understand that he's not necessarily allowing it, but it's up to us as humans.
You've already
As
agreed.
his
Wait.
children,
You've already
as
agreed
his-
that He's allowing and condoning it. Like, we already
As
kind of
his
like went over
children-
that.
as his children, he is calling us to be responsible for ourselves.
And how is that working out?
You tell me.
Yeah. I
I
can
think
tell you. I
in
can
the
tell you, right? Like
in the
God is wanting His children to be responsible for themselves, and you have Roman Catholic priests who are using their religious authority to grape young boys, young girls, and adult men and adult women in the thousands.
I haven't heard of the women ones, but I have heard of the men ones.
There are plenty of women who have sued the Roman Catholic Church for being raped and assaulted.
Hold on, I'm looking.
There were tons of cases that, like, there were so many cases that the Roman Catholic Church came up with a budget in order to pay,
they
to deal with,
they
like,
have to buy insurance.
yeah, they had to buy, like, sexual assault assurance
I didn't even
insurance.
know
It
that
was so
existed.
bad. And guess what they do? Whenever a priest gets found out for graping somebody, one of the cardinals or whoever's in charge, right, just moves the priest to another parish so he can continue to grape people.
I've heard of that. But are you going to? All right. So you asked me the moral question earlier. Now I'm gonna ask you one. Are all cops the same because one bad cop?
That was Bobby's question, so Bobby, you can take that if you want.
Yeah, I mean, that was that. Well, he answered. I asked him if a cop sees someone about to be raped, should he stop it? He agreed to that, but it doesn't seem
I
like
agree to that.
it doesn't
But
seem like he gives the same credence to God.
I asked a very pointed question. All right. Is one cop being bad make all the cops bad? Is one religion that is doing something, or one sect of the religion doing something, make the rest of the religion bad?
Even if you say yes, that's not relevant to what's been asked about
Yeah,
God,
I, I
not
was.
God condoning.
Well, neither was the firefighter
How's the
seeing
firefighter not
women. Okay,
analogy?
but that wasn't relevant to the conversation. Conversation is does he condone it? Well,
Yes.
I don't think he does condone. I think he does sit idly by, but it's not a condone as per se, and he doesn't want it to happen. Problem is that he's not going to step in and stop it from happening because that's on us.
Well, yeah.
That's
So,
the
Okay,
so
point,
that
like
would be
firefighter analogy, though.
that would be like you telling the government, the military, to step in and stop all the crime that is happening that is supposed to be on
They
the cop.
should.
Because
That's
the
why we
cops
pay
aren't doing
taxes.
That's
yeah, that's
because the
literally
cops
why we
aren't
pay
doing their job.
taxes. Cops are supposed to stop crimes, but also again for the fifth time, right? We've defined condone. Condone, in my own words, is going to be to stay idle and to allow something to happen. And then, in the words of the dictionary, right, it's going to be to accept and allow behavior that is considered morally wrong or offensive to continue. And like when I defined condone in my words and in the dictionary's terms, right, and I asked you like, hey, is God condoning grape in the Roman Catholic Church? You even agreed with me and said, yes, he is staying idle and allowing people to get graped. Grape happens in the thousands these days. And depending on the area, or if we're considering the whole world, in the millions, right? So we've already established that like God is condoning grape. He's
Do you
just sitting
condone
around and
disrespect?
allowing it to happen. So my question now is like, why is he condoning grape?
Do you condone disrespect?
No. If someone disrespects like my friends or like my family, I will step in and do something to stop it.
Like what?
I will talk to them, and if it escalates to physical violence, then it can escalate to physical violence. We'll take it there.
But you told me earlier that you wouldn't say something if they weren't directed right at you.
Well, no, that's a different
But that's
example.
allowing. That's
Wait, no,
allowing it to happen.
no. So that's like two different examples. And again, yes, we're getting off topic
If you-
again.
if it's
But-
in-
Keep him on
if
track.
it's in
Don't let
your
him off.
view-
But dude, hey, yeah, Joe, we gotta stay on track. But like, look, the
Okay,
example,
but if
the,
it's
the example that I presented earlier, right, was you were talking about if I had a kid, right? If someone's kid is at the playground throwing rocks and it has nothing to do with me and it's not like interfering with my kid, then like I wouldn't do anything. It's not my job to parent somebody else's child. But like if that kid is like punching my child in the face and now it's starting to affect people that I care about or me, then I'm going to step in and do something, right?
All right,
Like,
well,
say something to the parent. Now this is a different example. You asked me like, do I condone disrespect? And like would I, stand up if someone was disrespecting somebody that I cared about, friends or family, right? different scenario, not about kids, but sort of similar, right? And yes, I would like do something about it. Now, the topic at hand is that God is seeing people grape people and do great injustices, right? And he is not like me. Apparently, I'm better than God. I will step in and stop injustice, if it's affecting me or affecting people I care about. But God sees all these people that he cares about, and he doesn't do anything to stop it. And my question to you is, why doesn't he do anything to stop injustices being done to people he supposedly cares about?
Well, he's not going to do it on our timeline, first and foremost.
Yeah, he's kind of just like waiting
promise
around.
to stop all of it, okay, and that is explained in Revelation, but it's explained throughout the Old and the New Testament.
Yeah. So
Right,
essentially,
so
like people are gonna get raped, people are gonna get robbed, people are gonna get shot, and God is kind of just like waiting until the end times to deal with all of that, and we're supposed to just like sit around and wait, I guess.
pretty much, I guess, if that's the way you want to look at it.
Is that a loving thing to do?
Is it up to me or you to decide what loving is?
Well, I mean, like, how would you define loving from your worldview?
You don't want my worldview.
I mean, I asked for a reason.
Give me a scenario where you think it would be loving and I wouldn't, or I mean, I can't tell you because your worldview is going to be different than my worldview.
Okay, so let me give you a scenario. Let's say that I loved a woman very much. I loved a woman very much. She meant the world to me. And let's say that someone viciously raped her, right? Now, I think that a loving thing would be, like, if I heard that someone raped this woman that I loved, I would go and, like, take legal action or handle it, right? Which might include some physical force. But, like,
Would you... talking outside justice.
Yeah, would you say that it would be loving of me, right, to hear that my woman got raped and say, like, oh, I'll just wait, like, a few couple years and then eventually, like, I'll deal with it? Or would it be loving for me to immediately jump to action and try to make correction?
All right, so there's something that's missing there. All right. Does she love you? Are you guys together?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. If you are together, all right, I would wait a couple of years. I would love her.
Wait.
Hold on.
Bro, what?
Hold on.
Wait,
All right, you want me to hear you out? You're going to have to hear me out.
oh no.
So, wait, dude, okay.
Are you married?
To be clear,
You're not going to hear me out.
wait, to be clear, if you had a woman that you loved and she loved you and someone raped her, you would wait a couple years
I have.
upon finding out before dealing with the situation?
My wife went through it. And the only reason I waited a few years is because I couldn't find him. All right.
Well, okay. So let's say that,
I
you
loved
could
her
find
through
him.
it.
Yeah,
I loved her through it. First and foremost, I made sure she knew I was there for her.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Yeah.
And then,
So really quick.
when
Pause.
everything got better there. First
Okay.
of all,
So really
you don't
quick.
want
Really.
the suspicion to be right on top of
Wait,
you.
hold on. Really quick, just pause. First and foremost, I want to say, like, I am really sorry about that. No one should ever have to go through that. I'm sorry that your wife went through that. So I do want to show a little bit compassion there. But, like, let's say that, like, the person who did that to your wife, you were able to, like, find them immediately, and you could get justice immediately. Like, understandably, if you can't find the person, it might take a couple years, right? So,
Okay.
yeah, like, it might take a
Alright,
while.
so-
But, like, let's say that, like, you could find the person immediately. Would
go
you
that route.
have justice right then
No.
and there?
No.
You wouldn't take justice?
What good am I behind bars?
Well, like, let's say that
No,
you
no,
could...
no, 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 no. You asked the one question. You didn't stipulate that the cops would be involved, nothing like that. But what good am I to my wife or to the love of my life or the girl that I'm loving or whatever if I'm in jail?
Okay, yeah, so maybe not like...
No, you want justice.
Okay,
You
yeah,
want
so...
physical justice.
No,
You
not...
want to go kill him, you want to go hurt him, you want to go do whatever
hold
you want
on.
to do.
So not vigilante justice. Let's say you could take that person to jail, to court, and that person would go to jail. Would you do it immediately, or would you wait around?
Oh, if I have a legal recourse, yes. Legal recourse.
Okay, yeah.
But
So
that's the difference between me and you is because I come from a different world.
Well, yeah. So, like, that's the point, right? Me and you are good people. If our loved ones got raped, we would immediately try to do something to deal with that. But like what you're telling me is that God is watching people get raped, and he's just sitting around waiting, right?
But you are
And saying
putting,
that eventually he's going to deal with it. So
you
we
are
have
putting,
we
you are
have
putting
more
someone,
we
okay,
have more
or
empathy
something.
than wait. So the thing is, we have more empathy than God. We care about people way more than God because we would immediately deal with the situation, while God is just waiting around and allowing thousands of people to get raped.
You are putting someone who is supposedly outside of time into a box.
How does
Trust
that
me,
change?
I do it all the time to the pastor. Okay, you're
How does
putting him
that?
in a box, and he is outside of time. He's not of us, of our realm, if you want to call it that. All right.
Okay.
Are you
Number
limiting
two,
God in some kind of way?
huh?
Are you like limiting God in some kind of
No,
way?
you are.
No, you
By
know,
that,
you
by saying that
you
he
should
condones it,
have.
by saying that he's allowing it, and that he's not doing anything right now in this moment to stop it, you are limiting God.
Wait. Me and you have agreed that he condones it, but also like, okay, so
But see, the condoning is where we differ. Okay,
okay, so
you
like,
say he condones it because he allows it to happen and he just wants it to happen. You see, condone has also an intent. All
well,
right,
yeah,
an
so like,
intent of want. He doesn't want it to happen. All right,
well,
that's not
like,
his intent.
okay, so like, if I had to reword it, then like, God typically tends to do something when things aren't going according to his will. If things are going according to his will, then he'll refrain from really hopping into action. And like that's pretty evident in the Bible, right?
All right, let me.
It was according to God's will that like the Jews were supposed to leave Egypt after 400 years. They weren't there for 401 years. They weren't there for 402 years, right? They left after 400, right? So what it seems like is that God is not taking any action for these people who are getting raped. So things are going as planned, because if they weren't going as planned, then God would literally do something to stop it.
According to the end
According
times
to like
of
the
the Bible,
Bible.
yes, everything is going to plan.
Yeah, I agree with you. Everything is going to plan. So God is okay with people getting raped for right now until like he can come back and punish everybody
Have you ever
that
been on?
raped people.
Which is
All right, one last example, and hopefully it gets through. If not, I don't know what to tell you. You've been
Okay.
on.
I want to
Have you
ask you
ever
a
been on a
question
road
before you
trip?
leave, though. No, go ahead and ask. I just want to ask you a question before you leave, Joe. But go on.
Have you ever been on a road trip?
Yeah.
Have you ever had car problems on said road trip?
Yeah.
Okay, minor or major? It has to be a minor.
Minor, sure.
Okay, so like a ticking, you heard a tick in your motor or something like that.
Or engine overheated.
That's not minor. That's major. Sorry.
Like, I mean, you can just put engine fluid in your engine and fix it.
No, that's not fixing it. That's putting a Band-Aid on it. But either way, okay, we can use that one. It'll still go down the road. You didn't overheat it to the point where it didn't drive, correct?
Yeah, like it's not like overheated to where it's destroyed, but like let's say it's heating up a
Okay.
little bit.
So did you fix it right then and there when it first happened?
Um,
Did you fix it after the fifth time that happened?
like what?
Did you fix it or did you have somebody else do it?
Well, it depends what you mean by fixing it.
Did you fix it? Did you repair the problem?
I put engine fluid in my car's engine, and yeah, I think that fixed the problem.
Okay. Why was the engine fluid low in the first place? Did you suck it out of there? Did
Well,
it
I mean,
magically just evaporate into the air?
well, the engine gets hot, and some of the fluid does evaporate, and you need to refill it whenever it gets low. So I think, yeah, that's how that works. I'm not really a mechanic.
Well, I am, and it takes a really long time for fluid, coolant, to evaporate.
coolant.
Until coolant doesn't start to bubble until 220 degrees. Your normal running of your motor runs at 190, which means it doesn't bubble at all.
Okay, yeah. So what's the point that you're trying to make?
Okay. The point is you didn't fix the problem right away. You just added coolant.
I mean, that sort of resolves the problem
Okay.
in the moment.
In the
That's
moment.
doing something, right?
Okay. Well, he gave you the commandment that you're not supposed to do certain things. He told you you got to love one another. You're supposed to respect one another. You're not supposed to commit adultery, which most people do. You're not supposed to commit theft, which is, theft of innocence. All right, we can put that under. You're not supposed to murder somebody's soul like that. All right. There's a whole bunch of commandments I can name off on this Catholic thing. All right. He doesn't, he doesn't allow it to happen. He doesn't want it to happen, but that doesn't mean he's going to fix the problem right now.
Okay, but like I said, like the fact that he's not doing anything shows that like things are going according to his will. Because if they were not, then he'd probably like do something about it. So essentially, what God is doing is He has the power to stop all grape that's happening right now, right? And He instead is thinking like, I think that this should happen until like I come back years and years and years from now in order to give people their punishment and repercussions, basically. God thinks that this ought to happen. If it ought not happen, then He'd probably do something about it.
We're going to say the same exact thing on that, but we're going to have different viewpoints of it. So we're just going to leave it at that.
You just think that's a good thing. That's the only difference. You just feel you guys agree. You just think what he said is, as a Christian, this is good, basically.
In the long run, so the act itself is not good, but in the long run, the evils, that are happening that will be destroyed, are good.
Oh yeah. So like
like I said at the beginning, I'm not going to tell you I believe. I'm not going to tell you I don't. I'm just arguing. I'm playing devil's advocate against you, due to the fact that it is a debate.
Okay, so like all things considered, grape should happen right now, because in the long run, it's better off that way, and God will eventually punish the grapist later.
Evil's going to happen.
Well, why is that?
Because evil seeped into the world, all right? And if you want to get into the philosophy part of it, evil started in heaven with Lucifer having pride.
Yeah.
But we're not, that's the, theological discussion. But either way, I've got to get, so I wanted to ask a question real quick, and I'm going to get off here.
Yeah, I just want to ask.
Oh, okay.
I like to be charitable, like in these conversations. I like to think that generally, Christians think like they should help, they should intervene when they see wrong acts. But I do wonder, like where your moral intuitions lie. So just in case, if God, right, was to command you to do something that doesn't align with your general moral intuition, like, I don't know, unalive your child, right, for some reward, would you do it, or would you not? Would you like?
If God commanded me to unalive my child, would I do it? Yeah. I mean, God commanded Abraham to do it, and he was on his way to do it, and then God stopped it.
Well, I mean,
don't worry about the story of Abraham. I'm just asking.
Would I do it? Probably not, because I'm not Abraham.
Maybe we should clarify on the specifics. Like, God didn't necessarily. Okay, I'm helping you out here, but like God didn't necessarily say like, go and like,
God told Abraham to go sacrifice his kid.
No, he did. He did, Coco.
Like verbatim in the Bible, it said like God wanted him to sacrifice his kid.
Yes.
I thought like God said he will, or Abraham said like God will provide. I don't think God explicitly said like, yeah, your kid's gonna unalive today.
No, he told him to go kill his kid.
What happened?
No, Coco. One thing that I would say for you is that one thing that doesn't follow, right? That just because God allows it, that God thinks it's good. I think those two things are separate.
Oh no, like I'm not saying like God thinks it's good, but I'm saying that God condones it to a certain extent. He thinks it ought to happen.
You think it ought to happen? Yes, that's correct. But
see,
I don't think his attitude towards it.
The order.
I got a feeling that you like the word condone because of what you read it to say, but like I told you, it has intent. All right, and
not necessarily. Well, I mean, like it does have intent. Like God's intent is that like people should get graped right now, and then like eventually I will come and give everybody their punishment.
You can spin that any way you want, but that's not.
No, that's the argument. That's the argument you've been making.
That's not how the rest of the world's gonna take that word.
Wait, so the argument you've been making is that God allows people to do evil things, and that He's eventually going to come in the end times to punish people for like their evil wrongdoing.
Okay.
So God is condoning it and think it ought to happen right now, and eventually I'm going to deal with it.
Okay, in the sense that we've been talking, and you've been saying condone in the bad way, I've been saying condone in a good way. All right, condone meaning, he condones it, but he doesn't want it to happen. All right, where you're like, oh well, he
I
condones it because he
agree.
sits there.
I agree
Okay,
with you.
so there's two different meanings there. One
He
is
doesn't.
with intent, and one is without. All right.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
All right. So the
So I
intent has to
agree
be
with
there.
you.
All right.
I agree with
But
you.
it's like,
He
but it's
doesn't want it
just
to
like,
happen. He doesn't want it to happen, but he's allowing it to happen despite having all the abilities to stop it, and he's condoning it essentially.
just like the word judgment. If I have a judgment against you,
What moral
would
responsibility
that
does God have to his creation? What general moral responsibility does God have to his creation?
he has none?
Hmm?
He has none.
So what moral responsibility do we have?
We are
God.
playful things to him. You
I
remember
agree.
that? You remember
Yo,
the end
dude,
of Men in Black?
I agree
Remember
with
the
you.
very
We
end?
are
Joe,
playful things to God. God
do
doesn't
you
really
have
care
moral
about human
responsibility to your
life.
kids?
You have moral responsibilities to him.
No, do
We
you
don't
have
have.
moral
He does
responsibility
not
to your
have moral
kids?
responsibilities to us. It's not a two-way street.
Yeah.
Because
I would say, Bobby, you can ask him one more question, but yeah, I probably should move on to the next guest, I
yeah,
guess.
like so if you have a kid, clearly you assume that you have some kind of moral responsibility to your child, right? You just kind of
If I have a
follow.
kid, I have a kid.
Yeah, so you probably agree then, yeah, that you have moral responsibilities to your kid.
Yes, I have to raise him. I have to feed him. I have to clothe him. I
Yeah,
have to
you,
house
you,
him.
you didn't just like throw him out in the wild and shit.
Oh, well, I mean, there was a time where I was trying to teach him how to swim.
Right. Well, I mean,
My
you were there
God.
so you didn't drown. That's good. So I think
I
for
didn't
you to
hold
say
him
like,
under that long.
if you didn't have moral responsibility to your kid, then your kid doesn't have any moral responsibility to you.
If I don't have a look,
Like
my
if
son
you
may
don't have any
love
moral
me.
responsibility to your child, I don't know why your child should hold any moral responsibility to you.
Once he turns 18, he has no responsibility towards
You
me,
are you
and I
trying
have
to
no
see what I'm saying
responsibility
though?
towards him.
Like if you held no moral responsibility to your child, I don't see why your child should respect or having any moral consideration towards you as well. Like there's no reason why you should hold to any morals.
He
Yeah,
really, I mean, really doesn't have to. I guess. I mean, if you want to speak in a theological way, no, he doesn't have to.
yeah.
So
So
Okay,
like,
it's
isn't
a
that
choice.
so? Isn't that the same thing for God? Like God
It's a
just kind of treats us like playthings, has no moral responsibility towards us. Which I agree with you. God
Well,
does not
see,
care about
you're
us.
conflating his morals the same as our morals.
Well, yeah,
And
yeah,
our
yeah,
morals
yeah.
are not the
So really
same as
quick,
his.
like I agree with you. God doesn't care about us. We're just like His playthings, and the
Oh,
Christian God
no, no, no! I
just
didn't
like
say
does
that.
whatever He
I did not
does.
say that.
Well, like you said, He has no moral
No, I
responsibility to
said
us,
he
so
has
we're
no
just His
moral responsibility
playthings.
towards us. And I just got done saying our morals are not the same as his morals.
you
I
literally get your
agree.
morals from the Bible.
I agree. We
Huh?
have better. I agree. We have better morals than God because me and you would immediately deal with the rapist if we could that raped our loved ones, but God is waiting till the end times to do it. But I mean,
God, according to Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, God dealt with the Pharisees when he found out that they were stealing from the people.
yeah, and
Right then and there.
yeah, that's been my point the
Okay?
entire time. So
So,
like in the Bible, there's multiple examples of God dealing with evil immediately when it happens, or
and there's
give or take
multiple
400 years,
and there's
or
multiple
such and
examples
such,
where he
right?
does not.
But when it comes to like thousands of grapes that are happening right now, thousands of Christians who put their faith in God and are getting graped and begging God to do something, God cared more about the people in the Bible than He cares about people today who are struggling, and He does nothing to stop them.
Okay, that's the case. All right. Um, we don't have an exact number from Adam and Eve to Noah. Noah being the ark. All right, an exact number, but it's 1,000 years, 1,500 years or so, according to the Bible timeline. Could be a lot of people. It depends on how you reproduce, how many twins and triplets you have, da 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 da. All right, so it could have been a lot of people. And he saved
But
them.
also like okay, so
Let's
like
say there was 1,000 people, 2,000 people, just a small number. Okay, in the 1,000 years. All right, and he saves 8.
well,
Is that morally okay?
um, I would
To us, no.
say no. Yeah.
To us, no. To him, yes. Why? Because the rest of them were immoral.
Because
He
he's kind of
found
a piece of
favor in
shit.
one man.
I feel like as a Christian, you have to say that it was moral that God did these things. Like I
If
don't know
you
why
read
I don't know
on,
why you keep on saying that you as a Christian have a different sense of morality from God.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to
we
me.
do. We do. Because we all want what we want. We
Then
don't want
what's the
what
point of
God
the
wants.
Bible then?
We don't want what God wants. We want what we want.
Okay, but like, I guess before we
When
move on to the
when
next
you meet a
guest,
when you meet a
or
female,
good.
do you know, and you find her physically attractive, do you pretty much right off the bat want to have sex with her?
Well, we don't really have to discuss that for TikTok purposes, but like, okay, like one last question before we move on to the next guest. So yeah, like God doesn't have moral responsibility over us. We're His playthings. Yeah, I agree. God doesn't really care too much about human life. He kind of does whatever he wants. So why should like an atheist or somebody who's struggling on Earth, like trying to pay their 9 to 5s, trying to pay their bills, working at 9 to 5, getting screwed over by the government, or someone who's being raped, right? Why should they care about God and have moral responsibility towards God or adhering towards any of God's rules if God doesn't really care about them?
That is a question for someone with a higher paycheck than I get.
Okay, but okay, but
And I'm just trying to be honest with you. I don't want to mislead you, because I mean I can answer that question, but at the same time I don't want to mislead you down the wrong road.
okay, but cool. Yeah, I mean, like,
I'm just trying to be respectful that way. So
to be honest, like, I think that's honorable. I've debated a lot of Christians on here, and well, like, I don't know what you believe in, but I've debated a lot of Christians on here, and some of them are kind of like disingenuous and like rude and like act like they know all the answers, and I think it takes a lot of courage to say like, hey, I don't know, and also, dude, I'm stupid. I don't know everything. Like, I'm learning and like growing. So like, I think that's an honest answer. I think that's a good
I
answer.
I debate too long because I can nitpick somebody's answers to get more out of them.
Yeah.
But
But okay.
throw up the questions, and you guys have a good night.
Yeah, and if you follow me, I'll follow you. And I'm gonna try to host these lives regularly, but I've kind of been on and off because I'm preparing debate events. I host debate events on TikTok, where we do formal debates with time sections and stuff. So I've been busy doing that, but I'll probably get back to the regular lives. Yeah, I'll give you a follow after I end the live, and we can talk in the future. I'd be happy to.
I followed you, and I followed Bobby.
Bet.
Have
See you
fun.
around.
Bye.
Booyah. Hey guys, there's 38 people in here, so really quick, if all of you could just like tap your screen so we can get more people in here, it really helps the live. So just tap your screens if you can, just a couple taps, that'd be awesome. Thank you for all the gifts. Sorry if I don't acknowledge them. I'm playing Fortnite and streaming on YouTube, so that's currently what I'm doing while I'm debating people. And again, I will return to doing these lives regularly. But I've been busy setting up debate events. I host debate events, as you guys know, formal debates. Anyone can debate. So, like, if you're interested in debating somebody formally with time section and moderation, feel free to hit me up, send me a DM, and I will get that. I'm very professional about it. I'll promote the debate. I'll organize the debate. I will set up times. I'll work around your schedule. We'll make it happen. So please tap your screens, like the live. It helps get more people in here, and we'll take a couple more guests. Literally anyone can debate, uh, including you, Zypher. You can do a formal debate. Actually, Zypher, I still want to debate you on the problem of evil. But let me get Barrage up here, if Barrage is still up here. And then, okay, Zypher, there is like a couple Christians that I have to get to before you. But like, I'll get to you. We're gonna do Love Life next, but hang tight. What you got for me, Love Life?
Hey, brother, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Awesome.
Yeah. So what you got for me today? The prompt is, why does the Christian God condone child rape, mass confusion, evil Christians, and all sorts of evil? This is a topic that I borrowed from Trey, another really good creator on here. Very good debater, way better than me. He's a pretty cool kid, pretty cool dude. But what do you got in response to that topic?
I would say that God doesn't condone any of that.
Okay, so like, how are you defining condone?
Allow.
Okay, so,
Not
well, like,
punishing for. Like not punishing for.
yeah, so, I guess we can use that definition. I would ask you to define allow, but like, so your definition of condone is not punishing people for it, right?
Yes. Well, like,
So,
I don't know, yeah, like not lack of punishing for said sin or crime or,
okay, so, does grape happen in our society today?
it's happening as we speak.
Yeah, in like large amounts of numbers, right?
Yeah.
All around the world. Yeah, I agree with you. So, like, can you demonstrate how God has done anything to like punish the perpetrators of like said grape?
Personal experience, I don't know. I've never experienced someone going through that.
Okay. So, like, I guess the case I'm gonna make, right, is that like plenty of people get graped. To be honest, I have a couple friends actually that have been like graped, and I'm very sorry for them. That's not something like I'm bragging about. That's stupid, right? But I have a couple friends who have had that awful and terrible experience, and actually, wait, let me change my wording here.
Yeah, that's the
Like
work of the
grape
devil.
grape happens all over the world, and I just don't really see God doing anything to stop it or to prevent the grapist from graping the person, right? So it seems as
That
if,
is,
according to your definition,
would
which
you say
is
would you say
to,
that there are no laws in place to stop it?
yeah, but those are human inventions, right?
Inspired by God.
Wait, okay, so can you demonstrate how they're inspired by God?
They're there for the greater good to stop said crimes and sins.
Well, yeah, but that doesn't demonstrate how like God inspired the establishment of those rules.
He's the source of everything good.
Well, I mean, that's a presupposition. You're gonna have to demonstrate that to me.
I can show you with scripture.
I mean, like, why should I believe the Bible?
You don't have to, but you should if you seek life and you seek exactly what we're against, which is graping and all these other things that we're naming.
Well, yeah, but like, I'm trying to believe in as many true things as possible, and as least many like false things as possible, right? And you're citing the Bible as like some kind of like literature of authority, and like, why should I?
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, why should I take it as that, as someone who doesn't
Because
believe in God?
because it says that's what it is. It's
Well,
the
yes,
only. It's the
yeah, yeah.
only
So like,
thing.
so if there's a book made by the so like if there's a book made by the Triple K members, right? That's saying like a bunch of like really schmacist things, right? And it says like this book is this book is like divinely inspired and is the law of the land and is something
It would have
objective
to
and
then.
authoritative.
It would
Like,
have to then.
should I trust that book?
You shouldn't trust it unless it proves that it can be trusted.
Yeah, so like that's what I'm asking you. Like, why should I believe in the Bible? Like, how is it proven that it should be trusted?
Because it is the source.
Well, yeah, these are just more claims, right? You're not demonstrating how, like, why I should trust the Bible. You're saying because it's the source, because
We
it's this,
started with
because
the
it's this.
no. We started with the demonstration because we spoke about how it is God not condoning said crimes. I explained to you how the Bible gives law and order against said crimes.
Is that going to be like how God inspired?
It's literally called the inspiration.
Okay, let me see if I can work around that one. So basically, you're saying,
Hey, why are you trying to work around the truth?
I mean, like the Bible's not the truth for me. You have to demonstrate why it's the truth. But like,
Oh, so you just need more, like, I guess, examples?
or like it's just I'm not compelled to believe that God exists or that the Bible is the truth. So like I just need evidence or like a demonstration of that. Like I don't even think the Bible is like inspired by God.
What's your definition of existence? Because all things exist, whether
That's a
it's
whole different
physical.
conversation. That's pivoting the conversation in a different direction. So like I don't think the Bible is inspired by God. I don't think it's the word of God. That's just a claim that like Christians make, right? Um, so if that's the case, like I don't think God inspired us to make laws about like not graping people. I think we made laws about not graping people because a lot of us don't want to be graped and we have a sense of empathy, and that's why we made that law. I don't think it was inspired by Christianity. You'd have to demonstrate that to me, which we're
The
back to
question
that
at hand
point.
is, why is
Wait,
God
wait. What do you
allowing
wait?
this?
You said Christianity,
Yeah, followers of Christ who believe in the teachings of Christ and that Jesus Christ died and resurrected.
right? So you're saying you don't think it was created by the followers of Christ, but yet you said that it was same people who created
No,
these
no, okay,
laws.
so like the thing I'm saying is that we made these laws because we
Followers of
operate on a
Christ
social,
made these laws.
so I'm saying we made these laws because we operate on a social contract. I don't want
Wait,
to
did
be
you,
raped. I don't want to be raped. Nobody wants to be raped, right? So that's why we made these laws. People don't rape people, and when they do, there's a punishment for that.
yeah,
You
who is
are,
we? We didn't make these laws. You and I did not make these
well,
laws.
the laws were made by humans. That's what I'm saying. I mean, I could be more precise with words, but I mean, like, that's the idea, right?
No, they were carried out. They were carried out by humans created by God.
Okay, yeah, the laws were made by humans. That's what I'm saying. Like the humans could be from God. The humans could also be from like primordial soup, right? Like at the end of it's irrelevant to the point I'm making. I'm saying that like humans created the laws, right? But you have to demonstrate to me how these laws are inspired by God or how God inspired the laws against grape.
So you were looking for a demonstration on how the word is inspired by God.
No, how God inspired the law for us not to grape each other.
I'm not sure if I understand like what you're looking for.
Okay,
So
you're
I told you
saying
when you look in the Bible,
okay,
it gives
to
clear
be
laws
clear,
against.
to be clear, you're
It gives you, yeah.
saying that the only reason that the law do not grade people exist is because it's inspired by God.
Is that what I
Is
said?
it, that's what I assume that's what I assume you're trying to argue for.
Don't assume. That's dangerous.
Okay, so tell me what your argument is then.
I'm not arguing. I came here literally for peace.
And even no, no,
Okay,
even then,
To
I don't
express
understand the point.
other
That's the point of
things.
it. The prompt is, why is God not punishing, or whatever the definition of condone is being used? Why is God not like punishing or allowing or whatever this? It doesn't,
Right.
even if
And
God
I
inspired
stated
some
that
law, it's
he
not.
is punishing though. And you can see that there is law and order. When you do something like that, you receive punishment. You go through a series of trials and tribulations based off of the
okay, yeah,
sin you
yeah.
committed.
So let me hop in on that, right? So I'll make the case, right, that when someone gets raped, and a lot of times the rapist kind of like gets away with it. But when someone gets raped and they manage to catch the rapist, I think humans are the ones that are punishing other humans for doing like bad deeds, right? God is not doing anything. God is not involved in any of this. That's
Exactly.
something
That's
that
the point.
that's something you have to like demonstrate to me, right? God doesn't do anything. He sits by and he allows for like slavery, he allows for wars to happen, he allows people to get raped. He even allows some of the people who claim to be Christian to go around bullying people and doing horrific things to people, right? So, like, you have to demonstrate to me why God is not condoning everything that I've listed on this board, right? Because to
Yep.
me, like, I'm a non-believer.
So
I
the
don't think
reason why
God.
God is
I don't
the
think
reason
God
why
does. I
the
don't
reason
think God does anything for anybody. God is sitting aside and watching all these terrible things happen, and people are in pain. And then people are gonna walk up to me and say, like, God still loves you. He just unalived himself to himself on a cross like 2,000 years ago. So, like, demonstrate to me how God is not condoning child, rape, mass confusion, evil Christians, and all sorts of evil.
Yeah, because he tells us that sin leads to death.
How?
That's an automatic ultimatum.
Bro, it's very simple. Bro, it's very simple. You know, God is just saying highly by not
And if
taking
you
some
knew,
kind of
so
direct
and if you knew,
action,
and if you, and
right?
if you,
Like
and if
imagine
you,
if you're a police officer and you saw something about to go down and you decide not to take the act. It's does God have some moral responsibility to his creation that he could that instantiate him to take some imperative, some direct imperative to like to the agents to his creation? Does God have any kind of
I just
moral?
told you, I just told you,
No, he didn't. He just said
automatically
No,
doing
like
so when
all
you
you said to us,
when you
all you
partake
said.
in
Wait.
evil.
Hold on. All you said to us is God said something about sin. Like, okay, to be clear, this is the. Sorry, Bobby. To be clear, what I'm arguing is that people get grapes. Atheists get mistreated by evil Christians. Bad things happen in our society, and God is sitting idle and allowing it to happen, or AKA condoning it to happen. Why is he doing this? Or show me that he's not doing this. That's what I'm arguing.
Again, sin leads to death. So if you commit more sin, that's going to do that to you, physically, spiritually.
Okay. Next guest. Wait. What was
I
that?
don't know.
Was that justified? Bobby,
No,
was
that was
that?
justified. It wasn't going nowhere. It wasn't. I don't think he was tracking the question properly. Like me asking, "Hey, why doesn't the police officer do this?" Well, because we have a law that's written somewhere, so that's why the police officer can just kind of chill and not do anything. We're gonna let the words handle it. You know, it just
But
doesn't.
yeah, like yeah, he's just telling us that God says sin leads to death.
Man, he's not saying anything. He's just saying God has some law. God has sin. Like he's not. I don't know. He had no choice with that one.
Yeah, like he's not listening to the arguments. He's not really. Um, I'm barely having to use my brain today to do these debates. Okay, but thank you guys for being here. There's like 39 people here. You could spend your time anywhere else, but you're choosing to spend your time with me. I genuinely appreciate it. I need to do these lives more regularly, but I haven't been recently because I've been setting up like debate events. But eventually, I'm gonna come back. Don't worry. If you could, you're all in here. Please tap your screens. That gets more people in here. That gets more interesting debates. And yeah, we'll see where it goes. I guess I'm doing like debate practice, and today's what, Tuesday? Um, yeah, today's Tuesday, so I guess if I was going by my old schedule, it would be casual talk Tuesdays, but I'm doing feisty debates today, so that's what we're gonna be doing. Okay, we'll do Zypher, but
Bro, I've been waiting since you started the live. The thing is,
okay.
I'm so confused because TikTok does this thing now where it's like you'll request and then after a while it'll say zero requests, zero people are requesting, and I have no idea whether like I'm actually showing or not. So I just kept re-requesting. So
Oh yeah, that happens to me too. Like I'll be in someone's live and like they won't let me up. And yeah, it'll just turn into like zero requests or something like that.
yeah, and I have the thing is I don't know whether or not like am I actually in live when that happens or am I not? That's why I like started re-requesting, but
Okay.
yeah.
So, Cypher, we've talked before. Historically, your responses have been triggering, but let's try this again. I'll give you another another shot. The topic for today is: does the Christian God condone child rape, mass confusion, evil Christians, and all sorts of evil? I honestly would love for you to ask me about the evil Christians part.
Okay. I would just say that yeah, he doesn't condone those things. In fact, in the Bible, it's pretty against those things. But I mean that's what's written in the Bible, so I would assume. I mean, you yourself say that God is kind of going overboard by sending people to hell. So I wouldn't really say that like, oh well, if he's putting people on fire for only an eternity about it. Like I don't know what world you would say that if I will fry your ass for stealing a candy bar, that same God somehow condones that same candy bar because he lets it happen for a time without like preventing it from happening. I just don't know why that would follow, but we can go on and talk about that, I guess.
Okay, so I would say. Okay, hold on. Someone was like, pew pewing at me on Fortnite. But okay, so I would say like,
You're playing Fortnite?
yeah, um,
Yo, you gotta
I gotta add you.
wins, man.
Okay, okay.
Nah, add my
And look,
brother. My brother's really good.
oh, okay.
I
But
suck.
also for the record, like, I don't know, this conversation might get heated. Sometimes we get heated at each other. But like, I do have respect for you, Zypher. I think you're pretty cool. Like, so I might curse at you and like call you an idiot sometimes, but low key, you're cool in my book.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I'm trying to work on like, my temper and stuff. Like, I'm not. Hopefully, I'm not gonna try to crash out on you, bro.
Oh, but I don't care if you crash out. We can both crash out, and then like it's kind of like MMA, right? Like they beat each other up,
I would
and then they hug each other.
honest. Like that's all I'm asking. Like don't be charitable. Don't be dishonest. I'm not
Oh,
gonna.
okay, but oh yeah. So like when it comes to hell, right? Typically, what I argue is that justice is going to be giving people what they deserve, right? Mercy is going to be giving people less than what they deserve. And then cruelty is going to be giving people way more than what they deserve, right? So I think like for a finite life of sin, or maybe a life of like not believing in God, I don't think that it's justice for someone to then spend like for a finite period, a eternity in hell, right? Like burning and suffering, and like they're never gonna get out of there. They're just suffering indefinitely. I think that's like cruelty, and I think like a lot of people would agree that that's way over punishing of someone, right? But like if God was like, I'm going to personally deball everybody who like grapes somebody, then I would say like, yeah, that's justice. Maybe a little bit cruelty, but like that's justice, right? Sort of an equivalent, and people shouldn't grade people, right? So that's kind of like my thing. I just think hell and eternity suffering for not believing in God or just for a finite life of sin is overdoing it.
Okay. Well, that's your opinion. I disagree, but I guess that's that. Yeah.
Wait, so let me ask this. So like let's say somebody lied for 61 years, right? And then they unalive. Do you think lying for 61 years deserves indefinite like pain and gnashing of teeth in hell?
I think God knows what He's doing, and I think God does everything for a reason. I think He does everything for a good reason, and the reason that He's doing, that's the punishment for the sin. It makes sense and it's valid. That's what I think.
Okay. We can just like agree to disagree on that point. But what was the other things that you said?
I didn't really say much. I just don't know why it's like it just. Well, it just wouldn't really make sense to condone because like based off of hell alone to say that like, oh well, because he doesn't prevent it for a time, we can see that he'll fry people for all of the things that are on the screen, but like it's condoning now because he lets it happen for a time. I don't really see how that follows.
Yeah. So how are you using the word condone? Like if you had to define condone, how would you use it?
Yeah, I would just be like to have acceptance of a morally controversial behavior. So to like something that's like compatible with you and your like moral compass, something that you accept in such a way that you would further it because of that acceptance.
Yeah. So basically my argument is it's just going to be, right? Like in the Bible, when people did injustices, right? There are plenty of examples of God like punishing those people like immediately, or like doing something to prevent or stop those people from committing sin. I would say that in those instances in the Bible, God is not condoning sin. He is dealing with it. He's handling it, right? But like in 2024, or ever since Jesus kind of like left the earth for the last time, a lot of atrocious things have happened. Popular examples include transatlantic slavery, Schmennicide with Schmittler, and like the one I've been using today, people getting raped by the Roman Catholic Church in the thousands, so much that the Roman Catholic Church has created funds to deal with like schmexual lawsuits, right? And unlike the Bible, in today's world, God is just kind of staying idle. And it seems as if God thinks these things ought to happen until like the time of like revelation, where he comes and sets things right. So eventually he's going to give out the punishment for these transgressions. But as of right now, God is condoning it. He's just like standing idle and allowing it to happen. And this is, I guess, a part of his will until he comes back to punish the people who did those things. So that's my argument.
Yeah, I think this view stems from the presupposition, if God doesn't ideally want something, he just won't let somebody do it. That's just not true. A lot of times atheists will view things consequentially. They'll look at the consequences and they think God should view it that way, and that God should be preventing these bad consequences if he doesn't want said bad consequence. Said bad consequence could be like the grape or whatever you want to put here, and if he thinks this consequence should not happen, then he would move to prevent it. But that's just a wrong, that's not how God works, and it's a wrong, it's not a good presupposition to have.
Okay, so really quick. So, tell me the story about Sodom and Gomorrah. Tell me what happened with that.
Yeah. So basically you had like these LGBT rapist types, and they were doing a lot of LGBT rapist stuff, and that caused basically they were doing that, and then you had Abraham. God used that to demonstrate to Abraham his mercy, and then also his judgment on the city. And then Jesus came down through I forget what you call it, like I think it's like a Christophany or theophany or whatever the heck you call it. But basically it was Jesus and two angels. They came in and they tried to attack the angels. The angels didn't let that slide. And Jesus came down and started raining hellfire on the city after causing Lot to leave.
Okay, so so given that, right? Like people are doing some kind of injustice, and God basically delivers some kind of punishment to that injustice. To sum it up, right? I was mainly like referring specifically to like, I think it was Sodom spilling his seed on the ground or something like that, and God punished him for that. But
Are you talking about like the Judah and Tamar situation?
I think so. Maybe I'm referring to the wrong thing, but it's like there was this couple, and the husband died, so the brother took the wife, and he so
Judah and Tamar thing.
yeah. Okay, so I referred to the wrong thing. My bad. But essentially, he kept spilling his seed on the ground, and God eventually like punished him for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
What did he do in that situation? I thought that was Sodom and Gomorrah.
Okay, yeah, no, Sodom and Gomorrah was what I had described, but yeah, no, that was a city. But yeah, it was a city of rainbows that got judged. But basically, with the whole Judah and Tamar situation, there was like an heir to the throne, and one of his son, I forget the guy's name, but the dude's
Like LGBTQ and rainbows. What?
just TikTok, man. But basically his son was gonna be the heir, but it was another guy's son. It wasn't his biological son, so he would have schmecks with her, but like he wouldn't
um, give her a baby, and he would keep playing her and judged that person. Now, I don't know precisely why God judged them. My working theory is like, this is the line that eventually leads to Jesus, so it might have something to do with Jesus and him actually getting born. So I don't know, but it's some sort of, usually when stuff like this, when somebody gets smitten, there's some sort of like lesson that's some sort of parallel, some sort of univocal message. But this I
Are you
have
saying that
to
God flooded a city of
speak on that case. Bro, like
LGBTQ for some
why?
reason?
Come on, Bobby.
It's
But
just it's what I tend to do. They just
Yeah, that's he said like these people like I don't like them doing this, so I'm just gonna like mass shred aside an entire city of like LGBTQ people. It's a little bit wild.
wait,
That's
how is wait? Damn. Like you realize those people were like booty bandits, right? Like they weren't like
I mean, like, does that mean like they
Bro,
deserve death or
what
something?
do
Wait,
you,
what?
what do you mean by booty band?
Yeah,
you know what I
that's
mean? Like those are like Fleece Johnsons, like fam, like
Cypher. You're moving mad, man. You're moving mad.
no, but okay, but for real though, like on some real talk though, like trust me, like dude, like if you actually read the scenario, like he should have been spraying them like they was ants and roaches, like with raid, like fam, they
What,
they
what,
were
what did they
Wait,
do
wait.
exactly to deserve what you're saying?
Okay, yeah. Well,
They can't.
we're gonna.
Is it just because of LGBTQ? Is that why they should do that?
Yeah,
no,
we're
it
gonna
wasn't.
decipher this, and then like I'm gonna make the point that I was gonna make. But yeah, did God just because of their orientation? That's it.
No, it was there was a lot of grape. I believe I don't remember, but this also had to do with the time and we did a lot of unalliances and stuff. There was just all in all there was a lot of violence. Like when the angels came, they literally tried to like swipe their booty, bro. Like can't even hold.
Um, Interesting. Okay, sounds like that one episode from Boondocks, the Booty Warrior.
Yes, yes, they were literally on that type of timing, dude.
Okay, so essentially, like my argument's gonna be like in the Bible, people do an injustice, right? And God is like immediate to give them like a punishment, right? That right there is like not condoning the behavior. He immediately like punishes them for like whatever the case may be. So if it's like Sodom and Gomorrah, like an entire city gets it. If it's like the where the guy was spilling his seed on the soil and wouldn't like impregnate his brother's wife, then he gets it, right? But like in 2025 or like 2024, 2023, 2022, right? You had thousands of women, men, boys, girls raped, right? And like I haven't seen any demonstration of God punishing any of those rapists. I've seen the Catholic Church getting away with it, saving up money, paying off those court cases. And that would be what I would consider God condoning the behavior for now. He thinks it ought happen for now, and eventually he's going to come and, do what is depicted in Revelation.
If God lets it happen, then He's saying it ought happen for now. That doesn't I wouldn't really make sense. Like, for example, like with the whole Sodom and Gomorrah thing, like obviously you can see that He's not condoning anything, but He still let it happen for a time, and He waited until that entire city was bad until He let that happen. It doesn't mean He was condoning anything. Same thing with like the whole Judah and Tamar, that the dude still was hitting. Like he still let bro hit. He still let Judah or Tamar or whatever his name was, he still let him hit that woman like time and time again. Like like he was still getting the punani, and eventually God put a stop to him, and like he wasn't gonna play with her anymore. So
Yeah. So like so okay, so here's the reductio, right? Like
you can see how none of that is condoning though. So I'm just saying, like, this means that
yeah,
just
I
because he
agree.
lets it happen for a time, that doesn't equal condoning.
Yeah, oh yeah, but like how are you defining condoning again? He's just like sitting idle and like allowing something to happen. He's not doing anything to like stop these things from happening. That's what I would say condoning is.
That's
Condoning is sitting idle and allowing for a particular behavior to occur.
well, I reject that he's sitting idle. Like God's never sitting idle, but
Okay, so show me like God
doesn't it
has
just
done.
sounds like wait, can I finish? It just sounds like you just mean like he doesn't like prevent the things from happening because he definitely wasn't sitting idle with Sodom and Gomorrah.
I agree with you. So like in that specific example, God is not condoning what they did, right? And to answer your other question, right? Let me do a reductio. If I have a daughter and I walk in and my daughter is getting raped by somebody, right? Because I don't condone that, and I think that ought not happen, I would move to like stop it immediately, right? So the reason I say that God thinks that this ought to happen is because he's watching all these people get raped by the Roman Catholic Church, and he's just kind of gonna sit in idle. He thinks that this is okay that it happens for now until I come back and do what is depicted in Revelation, basically. He has all the power to stop it. He sees it happening, and he's just like, okay, for now, it ought happen. And then when Revelation occurs, or when it's time for Revelation, then I'll do something about it. So that's why I would say he's condoning it, and also it ought to happen from God's point of view. Because if it ought not happen, he'd probably do something about it.
Yeah, where are you justifying that if God doesn't immediately prevent something, he thinks it ought to happen? Like, there's no good justification for that jump in logic.
Can God fail in respect to his desires?
What does that even mean?
So if God wants to stop something from happening, can he fail to do that?
I don't think he wants to prevent the things that he doesn't prevent from happening to happen.
Wait, say that one more time.
I don't think he wants to prevent things that he doesn't prevent to happen to happen. So if he doesn't prevent somebody to get raped, I don't think he wanted to like prevent them.
Okay, so essentially, okay, my brain is not really like getting that, but like, okay, so essentially, like, if God didn't want someone to get raped, right, then he'd probably do something about it to stop it, wouldn't you say?
If he didn't want somebody to get raped,
Yeah.
yeah, not necessarily. It really like if he didn't want somebody to get raped, like for the in respect to the grand plan that he has for somebody in the trajectory of like their life, then he would just stop it. But he can also not want somebody to get raped and also like not prevent it.
Well, I mean, but like, okay, so God could, so okay, so God could, God. Oh, wait, before that. So God, like, okay, God could find grape irrehensible, right? But the reason he's not stopping it is because he thinks that it's better in the grand scheme of things. Grape should happen. Because if he didn't think that, then he would stop it, essentially. Like the other Christian said, which I'm not sure if you hold to this view, but God is kind of like waiting until it's time for revelation and he's going to do his thing. But in the meanwhile, like people have free will and he's allowing people to just do whatever they want without like intervening. So it would seem as if God thinks these things ought to happen. Like these things should happen and then eventually I'm going to come deal with it. Otherwise, why is he just like sitting around? Like if God wills something to happen to not happen, can he fail to can he fail to enact his will? Like he can't. I would assume for an all-powerful God.
Let me tell you this. Do you think that there's some sort of logical contradiction for a Christian to hold to a view that God doesn't prevent something from happening but still think it shouldn't happen?
Yeah, I think that's a contradiction.
Okay, how is that position directly negating itself?
Okay, so wait, say it one more time.
Yeah, how is that position directly negating itself?
But say the position again.
Yeah, they holding to a view that God thinks something should not happen but lets it happen.
God thinks something should happen, but lets it happen.
Yeah, how is that directly negating itself by holding to that view?
I mean, I don't know. The wording's kind of throwing me off, but like I would say like if God is willing, like God. Okay, good question. But I would say like God doesn't like grape. He doesn't think that it should happen, right? So like there's that. So there's that one statement. God doesn't like grape. He doesn't think it should happen. But given his actions, right? Given revelation, this idea that God is just like staying idle and he's going to come back in the end times, it seems as if God doesn't like grape, doesn't think it should happen, but he's going to allow it to happen at the moment. So it's kind of weird because God doesn't like grape. He doesn't think it should happen, but he's not doing anything to stop it. So it's as if he thinks like it's better off if this happens for some greater plan that he has. So it's like he doesn't think grape should happen, but then he allows grape to happen because of some like it's better off in the grand scheme of things.
Like you realize a Christian doesn't have to accept that like if he lets it happen, therefore he thinks it's better off it happened that way. Like why? What? Like
wait, okay. So God is sitting. Okay, so God is sitting up in heaven. He sees somebody about to get graped. He has two choices: stop the grape or sit idle and let the grape happen. Given that so many grapes happen in the world, right? It would seem as if God in that moment thinks it's better off if I don't do anything and this person gets graped, essentially. Because if it wasn't better off that way, then he would step in and do something.
yeah, our axiology or morality doesn't work in the same consequentialist way that you view it. So,
So like,
hold on, wait. I'm just trying to answer. So let me present you a third option. It would be neither of those two. It would be actually I extract the good out of the bad that the humans that I'm allowing to have free will to make a choice to reject my goodness. And now I'm going to extract all of the goodness out of the bad, and I'm going to save the ones who want to accept me, who want to listen, who want to accept me, and I'm going to do this my way. So like
okay,
it would be neither of those options.
yeah, so God is saying like the grape should happen, so I can like bring some greater good out of it. I'm not gonna prevent it. It ought happen, and like I'm eventually gonna bring some good out of it.
You just force like you realize that the issue with this argument is that I can just straight up just say that that's not how that works because hold on, when you add a consequentialist view of morality, well, if you're letting it happen then and just say, well, if you then you just ought happen. I could go to your morality and just make up some rule that, well, hey, if you don't actually go to the most severe extent to prevent all the bad things, if you don't end this live right now, then actually, consequentially, you actually view that it's a good thing. I could make that up about morality, but that's not how our morality works. I don't have to accept that, like, oh, well, because God doesn't lets this happen, therefore he thinks that's just not how our axiology or morality or any of our value theories work.
Okay. So really quick, Cypher. So like, let's say, like, I don't know. Maybe there's something I'm not understanding here. But like, you agree that God has the ability to make reality whatever he wants it to be, right?
To a certain extent.
Okay, so like, God has this reality. Like, I don't really know what's confusing here. Maybe I'm confused, but like, God has this reality where he has the ability to do anything he wants to do, and I mean, according to most Christians, within logic, within reasoning. Some Christians would say that God can do illogical things. But like, God has this reality. He can do anything that he wants to do in this reality, right? He can make any situation happen. He can do anything. He sees that somebody, okay, instead of graped, he sees that somebody's about to get robbed, and he has the ability to prevent them from getting robbed. And in that moment, he's thinking to himself, now, robbery is a bad thing, and like, I don't want this person to get robbed. Now, the only way that my brain, the only way my cashing that out is that God doesn't intervene in the 2025 robberies because he thinks for the sake of free will, for the sake of his overall plan, this robbery should occur so he can either bring something good out of it or because it's contributing to some overall plan or there's something to get out of it. Like, I don't understand like how that reasoning would be flawed of your view.
What I'm understanding is that the Christian position in this is not so much that
Let me break it down for you, Coco, because you're thinking things from a consequentialist standpoint, and we don't. And Christianity rejects consequentialism. So that's the fundamental issue with all forms of like the all things considered argument, is because it views things from a consequentialist perspective. When most Christians are, when in fact all Christians are either going to be I'm a deontologist, but some of them are virtue ethicists, and possibly more virtue ethicists. But like we don't measure like good and like we don't measure it based off the consequences. Measuring all of these events that happen based off of the consequences, and then that God weighs the options consequentially, and he's always trying to make sure the options are like ultimately good immediately in that mode. That's just not how God works.
yeah.
It never
Wait.
was to begin with.
But okay, so like if someone like let's say someone gets graped and like they're experiencing the trauma from that grape, right? And God did nothing to like stop it, right? He's allowing that to happen, you would say.
He's not preventing it. So if that's like allowing, then sure.
Okay, so why is God allowing that to happen in our reality?
Because people choose to reject him, and fundamentally, like the way love works, love must be freely given. God is like goodness and love and all of these things, humility, like itself. So he wants you to have a relationship with all of those things, i.e. him, and he can't really like make you like follow those things, because the whole nature of like being loving, humble, is that like I have to freely choose to do it. I can't like coerced into doing it. I can't be consequentially led into doing it. It has to come from my heart, from my intentions, from my
Okay, yeah. So given that God wants free will or people to make choices or genuine love, given that he has this goal, he stands idle and lets people get graped because he's trying to achieve this other goal. That's essentially what he's doing.
Why are you like, once again, you're trying to measure it from a consequentialist standpoint.
Wait, no, but that's what it is. He has goals in mind, and he's allowing people to get graped because of the goals that he wants.
Imagine if I was like to try to like force like a ontological view onto your consequentialist view, and then you say, well, that's actually what it's like. No, it's not. It's like,
Okay, Zypher, okay, step by step. Okay, first off, do we acknowledge that grape happens in our society, right?
no, grape never happens.
Okay, grape happens in our society, right? Now, before the grape happens, right, God is sitting there looking at it, right? And he's like, it's gonna happen.
Why do you think it's ever gonna quit, Coco?
The grape happens, the person is traumatized, God did nothing about it.
Zypher,
Like,
just accept. If he lets it happen, it just should happen, dude. Like, come on, dude. That's
Yeah,
how that
given
works.
in correspondent because like I asked you, like, God allowed grape to happen. He didn't do anything about it. So why is he allowing it to happen? And you told me that it's because of like free will. He wants people to love him authentically. He wants people to make a choice. Yada yada yada. So all I'm saying is like I'm agreeing with your worldview. Given God's goals, and he has all the ability to stop bad things from happening. He thinks that like this grape should happen because I have these goals of people having free will. And that's that. He has the ability to stop people.
The bit I don't understand, Christian, is you should agree because God prioritizes free will over
Wait,
stopping.
Bobby, am I being wait? What I'm saying?
I don't understand, but I don't understand why you can't. Why is this? For me as a Christian, I will agree. Yeah, God prioritizes free will over, interfering with like someone about to grape a child.
Yeah, so God says,
I understand why that's controversial for you.
yeah,
Now, that was just the entailment of the view. That's all.
yeah, like this is the clear entailment. So God is like, rape should happen, robberies should happen, vicious murders should happen, right? Because I want people to have
Yo,
free
bro.
will, and this is like what it's
Yo,
gonna
pro
cost for
tip.
people to have free will and
Pro
for
tip.
people to have like a loving relationship
Pro
with me.
tip. Just if you're gonna bring this to a debate, just bring some sort of argument as to why a Christian should accept that, like, if God lets it happen, therefore He thinks it should. You're just saying like that's
No,
just how that
Coco's not
works.
saying that.
Wait,
No, no,
wait, that is what he's saying.
no. That's not what. Well,
No, no,
actually,
because one thing what Coco is
to an
saying.
You're gonna
extent.
say no? Okay, wait. So we
Wait,
don't
wait, wait,
actually,
no, wait,
wait.
wait,
So
wait,
we
no,
don't
like,
actually think that if God lets something, thank you. Then you get it.
wait, wait,
Yeah, just because God doesn't let something happen doesn't mean it should happen, or that consequentially that it's good or that it ought to happen.
Yeah, that bit that's a separate argument. I think Coco. I think I said that earlier when you were talking to that last dude. But and what I'm saying is that the entailment is that God prioritizes free will over the stopping of like someone being raped, and to me that will have to be um the prioritization will have to be good.
yeah. So essentially, like, it's
Once
essentially.
again, like Bobby, that's just
I'm
not.
not saying no, no. I'm saying that is good. Good God has any attitude towards the rapist, or the grape. I'm saying that the prioritization of free will over, stopping someone that's being raped is good.
Yeah, so essentially, like, so essentially, God is like, grape is bad, but I really want free will, right? And I have this plan, and I have these goals I'm trying to achieve, and I have all the ability to stop the grape from happening. So I'm just gonna let the grape happen. This person is gonna get viciously graped because I want people to have free will, and I want them to come to me and have a loving relationship with me. And I think I I think this grape ought to happen given perspective to my goals.
Like I'm just gonna say again, like you're just forcing that on the view, and it doesn't exist, dude.
Because wait, Bobby, am
Unless
I
you want
wrong
to say
for
like
saying
there's.
that?
I wouldn't use words like I
Hey
think it.
Coco,
I
you
wouldn't
really
use words like
because
God thinks it ought
you
to
realize the
happen.
burden like this like you shouldn't use this argument because you realize the burden you would have to say that there's like some contradiction entailed for me to for me to affirm like both simultaneously like that God doesn't like this thing and yet lets it happen that somehow that like leads to some sort of contradiction. And if
Okay,
Yeah,
wait, okay,
Coco,
okay.
I agree that you two things you keep saying here, like you think God likes or something like God said it ought to happen. Like that's an argument that's a separate argument that God thinks it ought to happen. My argument is that usually with like J. Mike and others would say that it's good that God will prioritize free will over like heinous acts or like horrendous acts, right? And that will be good.
Okay, maybe the odd thing is a bit far, but yeah, I would say that given God's goals, um, yeah, given God's goals, He's like allowing this grape to happen because yeah, He's prioritizing like other things. Maybe the odd thing is probably something like I
Like
would have to present like
well,
an argument for.
if you say you have to God if you have to God says you ought to do something.
you wouldn't have to just present an argument. You have to show that like that our view is like somehow logically contradictory. That I can't
Okay,
hold to my view. 'Cause you can present an argument why I should believe your view, but I can just reject it if I don't hold to it. If mine is perfectly fine, there's no contradictions, then I can just hold to mine. I still that doesn't mean I have to accept yours. Do you get what I'm saying? You would have, well, I'm saying you not only have to like present an argument for your view, you have to say like you can't hold to my view, and that you
Well, no,
must hold to
Coco doesn't have to
yours.
do all that. Coco, you could just even Coco doesn't have to like me like have you pivot.
No, no,
Coco just
no,
have to
Bobby,
show
Bobby,
how
wait.
absurd,
He
how
would have to
absurd.
do that if he wants the whole ought argument to stick. That would be his burden.
okay, so like
Well,
okay, so I'll drop the odd thing. But essentially, God is like, I have these goals, I have this world that I want to create. I want people to have free will. I want people to love me freely. So when someone is about to get graped, it would be better off if I just didn't do anything. That's essentially God's thinking
Yeah,
to accomplish his goals.
yeah. The issue with that is you're still thinking about it consequentially.
But you keep saying consequentially, but like that,
Yeah,
the scenario is that God didn't do anything in
because that's not
in
the
correspondence to
scenario.
his goals.
That's not the scenario. You're thinking of it when you say things like in correspondence with his goal. You're thinking about these events, insofar as how these events can
No,
lead to this.
Coco saying
But you're
prioritization, the prioritization of free
Bobby,
will corresponds to God's goal.
Bobby, just let me finish. And you're evaluating it consequentially. You're looking at two events. God, freedom, like free will, and how does he prioritize it over them not getting prey? And then you're looking at the two things, and if he chooses one thing, it's because he like has some sort of priority over this consequence over the other. That's not true. It's that's no. You have to think of it because, like I said, I'm a deontological. It's more about duties and obligations, and in respect to how you carry out your duties and obligations to the good. So God's duties and obligations to the good are going to be different than a human's duties and obligations to the good because we're two different beings with two different sets of capabilities. So and with two different levels of authority. God's going to have infinitely more authority than any person, than any man.
Why
So
Christian? You just because you hold to like the ontology, does that all of a sudden escape make you gives you the escape to like for Coco to show the obvious entailment of the view?
if you use it under consequentialist thinking, yes,
Why?
because I
But
don't hold
the
to.
entailment is even if you want to say it's consequentialist, it's just the obvious entailment of the view. As a deontologist, yes, you're duty bound, but even though you're duty bound, you could just say this is a bullet that
Yeah,
you have to bite. That's all it
the
is.
reason why is because if I look at something like a grape happening, I don't view we don't evaluate it based off of the consequences of the grape. Because if I was a consequentialist, grape could be good if if it led to good outcomes. Well, we don't believe that. We're based off of duty, so it doesn't matter what consequences anything leads to. So if you use it under a consequentialist frame of morality, we can just outright reject it because we're not consequentialists. So but whereas if it's under our own deontological view, then it would be like, okay, now you actually have something. But we don't have that. We don't even have that axiology. So if you like force that on our view, that we just don't hold to that view. Like say for example, you're an atheist, and then you were to say, well, actually, if God ever uses a human for his will, then he's just automatically evil, and it leads to a bad consequence. And I just make that up. Right? I just completely make that up. Where am I getting it? From my own frame of morality? A Christian could just outright reject it because we just don't hold to that being the case. Does that make sense? Same thing here with this whole all things considered. Well, he ought. Well, therefore, that means he values. No, it's because no one anywhere in the Christian Bible
Wait,
holds that frame of reference.
my understanding of
Does
this
that make
argument,
sense?
it makes sense, but my understanding, make sure I'm still
Hold on,
getting.
Bob. Wait, Bobby, Coco. Does what I'm saying make sense?
Um, yeah. So there's just two types of views. There's like a consequentialist view, and then there's like some other like ontological like
Deontology.
deontology view.
Yeah.
And
But
I'm guessing like, are you reading a paper when it comes to this, or?
this is just
I've read on both views, not like too deep, but I've read the basics on all of the virtue ethics. I know how these views work, and you're basically when you're using like a consequentialist frame of reference, like the whole way that basically ultimately, to put it in like layman's terms, the way you evaluate situations is not the way that Christians do it. So to force that sort of evaluation is just automatically going to be wrong, because that's not how the Christian theology evaluates any of the outcomes.
Okay,
no
so oh, go
that
ahead.
that's fair, but like even when you look, if you pose this meta-ethical framework, or someone that's outside could just look at it and just like poke holes in it and just show some kind of like like some absurdity to it. That's how all meta-ethical framework works. You always find something to show how we could ridicule some part of it at some point, right? But in this case, I'm not sure if Coco is trying to like hold give force you into some kind of consequenceless position. He's saying that yes, we do understand you're the ontologist, and maybe God is also like some kind of, not sure. I've actually never questioned the kind of framework God Himself would hold to, but I'm sure God would be like duty bound as well in some kind of sense, right? So as far as like prior, God would prioritize something, certain acts or some moral facts, based on some kind of duty or whatever, and we just show, hey, if in these situations, this is the entailment of this meta ethical framework. It's just showing how absurd it will be if we were to follow such a thing. Yes, it might be the consequence of it, but it's just that's the point. Is like doing the critique of this framework. That's all it is.
Can you guys hear me chewing?
That is true. You could critique the framework. Like that's why people try to use like the trolley problem and stuff on Christians, or like what would you do if like uh the SS knock on your door? Like do you lie? Because under our deontological view, like you can't lie no matter what. So like you could try to do that, but I mean, it's not really. I wouldn't say it does much. It's like an external critique.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, as far it's not much of a critique. It's just like from your position, it just shows that absurdity, but it doesn't mean you can like not hold to it, right? You're just saying, hey, God is duty bound in some way to like, prioritize free will. Then it just follows that it's good that He prioritizes free will over all things, just like how in any situation the deontologist will always say it's always wrong to search murder. You know.
Yeah. Also, really quick, thank you guys for the gifts. I do reinvest it back into my account to keep this project going. So yeah, I appreciate the gifts. It helps me to do more things on TikTok. So I genuinely appreciate it. Um, but okay, I guess I'm gonna have to look into this. So I'm gonna have to like look into
I mean, it doesn't
deontology and
change too much. I mean, you can look into it, but it doesn't change too much. It's still good. It just still this, as you said, like God still, God thinks it's good to prioritize free will over all things.
so essentially like God thinks it's a good thing that he. I mean, like
I won't say
I
it's a
think
good
this is
thing.
inter.
I won't say it's a good thing that he thinks like grape is good. That's a separate
No,
argument.
no,
But
no. But like God thinks it's a good thing that he doesn't step in to stop grape essentially.
yeah, he would think any interference of free will not be something that should be done.
Okay, so I guess that leads us
So
back
he, so
to
it just follows then that you know it technically should follow that. Well, that's a separate argument. It's not like to say it follows
You
that
can't really say
raping is
anything
good.
follows
It
from
would
that. It's
be
just like God just doesn't think He should prevent our free will. But that doesn't really. That's the only thing you could extract. You can't say, well, therefore, there really isn't anything there.
so
It's
like
just
essentially God thinks it's a good thing that he just condones child rape essentially.
he thinks it's a
It's a
good
good
thing
thing that
that
he just stands aside
we
and
treat
like
people
allows
their
it to happen. Like it's a good thing that he
it,
just
it,
doesn't
it
do
is it
anything.
is that it's a good thing that he just doesn't interfere.
No, it's like no, that's not what I said. It's just it simply means that he thinks it's good that we have free agency. That's literally all that means.
Yeah, it's good. If you're saying it in the same way, basically, it's good that he doesn't interfere. You know, with
With
that
our free
rapist,
agency.
so he could have the agency to do what he wants.
No, that's adding stuff.
What did I add? I'm saying that he
Because
doesn't
the
want to take
free
away
will, it's
he doesn't
you're
want to take
saying
away the free
love
will of the
of
rapist.
rapist.
The free will matters more. I'm saying that the free will
No,
is
it's
good.
not that the free will matters more. That's just how love works. It's not that he values it more. Like over X thing. It's not like he values X over X. That's not it's not a value judgment. It's rather that's just the nature of love.
Yeah, I'm saying that he why is God interfering? Right. Let's start there. Why isn't God interfering like stopping the rapist?
There's many reasons, and it could be for the particular scenario. But one general reason is like as I said, like yeah, bro, free will, bro.
Yeah. So wouldn't and just say wouldn't it just mean that God loves free will?
Over like it, yeah, it wouldn't lead to some sort of value judgment that he like values this X over X. It would just simply mean like that the nature of love is just that you one in which you don't like destroy somebody's like free agency. And that's how that works. It wouldn't be like, oh well, it's because I value it over this. It's like that's where it's like reaching, but it's like
The deontologist, I won't say like the deontologist is not like a utilitarian, right? It's not like a value judgment, but they are duty bound on some set of laws. It's gonna, I don't know what kind of language to use here, but if deontologists say I'm duty bound to not murder, it kind of follows that murder it has some kind of like is a moral fact that is has some kind of some imperative and value overall to at least so to say like oh okay God doesn't value free will. I don't understand what is being said here. I'm agreeing with you that God loves free will.
it's not like the whole decision to have like free will is not a value judgment over anything else or like over like sin happening or something.
Yeah, but
That's
which one does God love more, free will or the raping of children?
it's the whole. It's not a value judgment. He's not like
So
picking
we
one.
can we can't even understand which one God loves more in this instance.
Which one? Look, yeah. This just it's just
So it could
it's
be
a kind
possible
of
that
a
God loves both.
he doesn't love the raping of children. What are we talking
Okay, so
about?
he likes free will more than raping of children. Then
That's not what would follow.
okay, I understand. Like okay,
Like this is
no
reaching. I've seen it.
it doesn't. How doesn't it follow?
Five
Because you just
philosophy.
said that he does not like the raping of children.
Bobby, you're reaching.
No. Just answer. It's just it's simple. He does not like the raping of children, right?
Correct.
Okay. Does he love? Does he not like free will?
Does he not like free will? Free will is just the natural state of things, fam.
Yeah, he well he created agents with free will, so I'm assuming that it wasn't just a natural state. That was something that was given.
Yeah, no, that's just naturally how like love. That's just naturally like what is. It's kind of like it's just
You're saying
it's
that he
like
didn't create agents with free will?
it's just like the natural. The free will is like the default. It's not like he like chose it over something else. That's just what is.
No. Did he when you know did he create agents with free will? What do you mean? Is that wasn't that what he wanted? Agents with free will?
Yeah.
So what do you mean is natural?
That's just the default. It's not like there isn't like another option. Like he could have chose us to not. Like it's just like what is like what when we talk about like what is love, like the default.
What
It's
is
it's
love?
gonna be.
Yeah. So to me, I don't understand what it like. What do you mean by default? Like these like so free will is not like is not something that God free will. My understanding from God's perspective is something that God will is something that God wants of agents,
Brother, I'ma
right?
go. It's 12:42. I gotta go. But it's been nice talking to you, Coco. Hopefully,
Mm,
you believe in the Christian God, and yes, he sacrificed himself for you, gang. He loved
I
like
mean,
if
I mean, yo, like,
if you would only
you know how I
trust
feel about
God,
God.
it makes sense. I promise.
I don't know. I think Christian. I think we should have like a long. I think I want to have a long conversation with you. I'm still hella confused in what the words are saying, like the words they're like using right now.
Yeah, like I would also like to have a longer conversation.
Because I'm not too sure how like what you mean when you say free
Okay,
will
but
is
at
like
least y'all learn. At least Coco. At least you learn you shouldn't be using the argument. At least I got you off of that.
Well, I mean, not necessarily. Like,
No, Coco, please don't
no,
backtrack.
because
You were
no,
progressing. Don't regress.
okay, if we're not speaking from a consequentialist view, given that God prioritizes, wait, hold on. Okay, wait, hold on. Actually, let me rewind back. Yeah, we talked about this. Bobby said that maybe like saying that like God thinks it ought happen is probably not the best thing.
Yeah,
But
that's like I don't understand. Yeah, that's a separate argument. If you think God thinks it ought to happen versus just because he allows for free will.
yeah,
So
yes.
I don't see why that would entail that. You know.
Okay, so like it just could be the case that God thinks that grape should not happen, it ought to not happen, but given that He prioritizes free will,
I think
God thinks that He ought to do nothing
well the bit with Christian
while grape is
here
happening.
with white Christian.
Well, I actually kind of agree in certain situations. I actually agree. Like, yeah, in certain situations, he believes like he's not going to prevent that. Yeah, I
Wait,
do
so
believe that.
are you saying
But
that
that doesn't mean that.
God thinks grape ought happen? Are you giving it to me or what?
No, what I'm giving it to you is that he thinks, in respect to like what is happening, that he shouldn't prevent it. Like that's
Okay,
just what
so
he should.
so ought grape ought not happen, but God thinks that He ought not do anything to stop grape.
To prevent it from that immediate.
Wait, what happened? I didn't drop him.
No, I don't have more power, so shit. I didn't drop him. I think it sounds like we were agreeing. Like it seems like yeah.
TikTok has this thing sometimes. Like it wasn't like this back in the day. If you were in the live, you could never like swipe off, but I accidentally swiped off the live. Like you can do that now. That's kind of weird. But yeah,
But yeah, so God thinks grape shouldn't happen, but
Mhm.
He also
But
thinks that He should not do anything to
yes.
prevent it. Okay, so essentially God is saying that He should condone child rape.
Why are you like once again? This is reaching again. Like
We know.
Yeah, that last said God thinks it should come down.
Cause like
That last sentence it keeps messing with you. No, for the most part, like you're in agreement that I think from the Christian position, God doesn't like grape, but God doesn't feel like He should interfere.
yeah, so like condone.
why do you guys think
so,
it's
so really quick,
hold on, pause,
condone
pause,
is just
pause.
gonna mean condone
You
is
guys
just
are a
gonna
little
mean that
confused.
like wait, hold on. Condone is just gonna mean that God is staying idle and doing nothing to stop the thing that's happening, right? So He's condoning it by just staying idle and allowing it to happen.
That that's what condone means because
Wait,
that
hold
would
on.
lead you to some absurd conclusions. But
Yeah, so according to the dictionary, condone means to accept or allow behavior that is considered morally wrong or offensive to continue. So God sees that someone's about to get grape. He stands idle and lets it happen, so He's allowing the grape to continue. He's allowing thousands of people to get graped by the Roman Catholic Church. So God doesn't think that it's a good thing. He doesn't think that grape ought happen, but He does think that He ought condone grape for the moment, basically. And condone is just gonna mean He thinks that He ought do nothing while people get graped by Catholic priests.
yeah, I don't. Okay, this isn't really doing much. So
Wait, Bobby, wait, hold on.
No, I mean
That's-
that's solid. I don't know what.
yeah, y'all just gonna go with anything at this point.
No, I mean
Whatever
He's not making any
helps the narrative, I guess.
odd claim. Coco's not making any odd claim from God. He's just saying that God doesn't. God would rather not interfere. That's all.
Okay, but one, let's just say I give it to you. It's not actually meaning or saying anything. You're just saying like God doesn't prevent some things. Sure. Okay, like that doesn't. You did it. God doesn't prevent some bad things. Wow.
Yeah, he thinks it's better off that He stands
Let me
aside.
see. When you use
and
language,
allow-
wait, Coco, stop. This is where you gotta stop. When you say better off, that's where you're just reaching again. The only thing that you can take from that, there's no other way.
It's Coco saying it's better off that he doesn't interfere.
Bobby,
Yeah,
just
it's better
let
off
it-
that He doesn't
both-
interfere. This is stuff
No.
you've
It's not
given
even a
us.
language thing. It's just an entailment.
It's literally the
No, that's
entailment
not
of
an
your view.
entailment because once again, you're just viewing from the wrong paradigm. That's not an entailment. I don't have to accept it. I could just outright
You
reject it.
literally
You don't have to
Okay,
accept
because
that
once
God
again, wait,
thinks
hold
that
on. Once
it's
again,
better off not
once
to not
again,
interfere.
you literally
dude,
told us that God thinks it's better.
Like, go
Cypher,
ahead.
it's what you said. It's what you said,
That's
dude.
not what I said. You just don't understand how any of this works, dude. You're confused.
Okay.
Okay. All right. But yeah, but please just let me speak. Don't just like declare victory and declare you like we win, we win. Like that's not. Yeah, trust me. Yeah, this means nothing. The only thing that you get from that is just saying that God doesn't prevent some bad things, which doesn't actually get you anywhere. When I say that, oh, God thinks that, under a deontological view, that there's a rule that in certain scenarios he shouldn't prevent some grapes. One, for some reason, you keep viewing it as if like all grapes for all time. No, it's not that he shouldn't prevent any grapes at all, or he should prevent all of them. No, it can be depending on the scenario.
Depending on the scenario.
Which ones
100%.
does he stop? Like, which grapes out of all the grapes has he stopped?
There isn't like an algebraic formula. It could be for whatever reason that he himself wills. But we know that he's doing it ultimately for the good. So
Okay, yeah. So
hold
God
on,
thinks.
bro, you're not letting me like actually explain anything tangible.
Okay. Actually, let's pause this conversation. I do have to get to the other guest, and we could probably continue at some other time.
Yeah, I understand. But yeah, just so you know, like everything you're saying is just reaching and just adding stuff that
You're not telling us why though. You're just saying God thinks it's good.
because you won't let me explain why.
But
Explain.
let's just like get to it another time. So basically, like where we stopped in the conversation is next time we speak, we have to talk about, like why God allows bad things to happen, or why he thinks that like he shouldn't do anything for these bad things that are happening.
Okay.
I guess that would be like the point.
That's not what I said. I've only said certain scenarios. I didn't say like all scenarios or most scenarios. I didn't.
Or like, okay, specifically,
That
like,
there are
wait.
there are certain scenarios where he's not going to prevent all the bad things. Yeah.
Okay, but cool. We'll stop it there, and then we'll continue it
But
later.
yeah, that's the only thing that would mean there's no entailment there. There's no like, oh well, if he doesn't stop it, it actually thinks he ought condone it. It's like, what are you?
So how did so you're relaying that God?
Okay, wait.
God, that's not
like that doesn't
Cypher,
that doesn't like
Cypher.
get you anywhere.
You have to follow what I'm saying.
Wait.
Okay, how?
Dude, why do
how
you
am I-
think that not
Cypher.
agreeing with you means I'm not following?
Okay,
Like,
Cypher.
why have you
How-
made that jump?
How am I defining condone?
Under yours, all condone means is that he just didn't prevent it.
Yeah. So like this whole entire conversation, right? What me and Bobby have understood from you is God thinks it's better that he doesn't do anything to stop grape from happening, right? So like I'm basically replacing in that sentence I'm basically replacing like
Hold
God
on, wait, Coco, just pause. I just want to fix one thing. If God thinks that I shouldn't step in to intervene in it, that doesn't mean he's assigning value to the scenario.
Okay, so reword it, right? In
No.
corresponding, wait,
I don't
hold
have
on.
There's no rewording.
Wait, hold on.
I can think. Hold on. If I let's just say I let my wife get great, but actually it was because of some other reason, right? It was for some other reason, and it was a valid reason. Just because I let that happen doesn't mean I have assigned the value that I think it's actually good that this is happening.
Okay, wait, hold on. I'm not implying that. I'm not. Wait.
That is what that implies.
I'm not
You're
saying
implying that.
no. Wait, Cypher. I'm not saying that God thinks grape is good. We should go around graping each other. No, I'm saying that God has certain goals, right? And he thinks that in order to obtain those goals, he shouldn't do anything to like stop grape. So
No, why
basically,
do you keep
I'm
saying in order to attain those goals? Like you
because
still
Zypher,
think
you've
that,
literally
no,
like
Coco,
Zypher, you threw
Coco,
us
you're
the pitch and we
still
hit the home run. You
no,
you gave it to
dude,
us. You literally
dude, dude,
said
dude, dude, dude,
that's
dude,
like
dude, dude,
you
dude,
literally
dude.
said that God prioritizes free will, right? He
Okay,
wants
but
free
why
will.
are
So in
you
order to
viewing
get
that
free
from a
will and love,
consequentialist
which
view?
you said, he doesn't
No,
do
dude.
anything to like stop
When you
people's free
say
will.
view these goals, okay, Coco, please stop. When you say these goals or view these goals, you're still viewing it from a consequentialist perspective and not a deontological one. You can't
Zypher,
say like,
does
oh, for the
Zypher,
ultimate
does
good of
God
these goals, he thinks it's good for this goal. What are you? No, that's not
Zypher,
how
because that's
that's
what you
not how
said.
our
Zypher,
value. No, that's not
Zypher,
what I
does
said.
God want
That's
free
not
will?
how our value
Zypher,
judgment.
hold on,
No,
Zypher,
Coco, that's
no,
not
Zypher,
how our view
does God
works.
want,
You
Zypher,
can't
answer the,
use evaluate it in that way.
wait. Does God want free will?
Sure.
Does God want people to freely love him?
Yes.
Does God want authentic relationships with humans?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we've been talking to you about this entire conversation. God wants those things. And in order to get those things, right, we've established in the conversation that he deems it that he shouldn't stop people from getting great because he has these goals of free will, authentic relationships with human beings, and human beings having the free choice to choose him in situations. So given the goals that he has, he shouldn't do anything to stop people from doing bad things. And basically, I'm taking that sentence, God thinks that it's good that he doesn't do anything to stop grape in order to accomplish his goals. I'm swapping out doesn't do anything with God thinks that it's good he condones grape in order to achieve his goals. And it's basically the equivalent.
Yeah, no, that's just reframing everything in a consequentialist perspective.
All right.
So
Like, I
the
don't
way
know,
that
man.
actually works,
I
it's
don't know.
not because you keep viewing
Hold on, really quick.
free
Bobby,
will as like a goal that he's trying to
hold
reach.
on, Bobby. What I
Dude,
said,
seeking
it's
your
based, right?
approval from Bobby. Yeah,
Because like I
seeking
just want to make
approval
sure,
from
Bobby,
Bobby
like
is
what I
like
just said,
you're
it's
right.
based, right? Bobby, we're on the same track, or am I like
It is,
completely confused?
it is, I will agree with Christian. It is consequentialist, but it's just like, it is
It's the
just kind of the
atonement of his
obvious,
view,
Okay,
right?
which
but
is
it is the
why I
obvious.
have the basis to just reject it in its entirety.
No,
Like,
no,
it's,
you
I don't
can
have to
reject
accept
it,
it.
but it's the inference that's still valid. It's
So
nothing.
like it's
No,
literally
like
your
if you want to
view.
view it
That's
that way,
literally
but it's
what you're
not our
saying.
view. Like,
Okay,
if you want to
it's
view
not.
it
It's
that
not.
way and just make
But
up. Wait, Coco, if you wait,
then
hold on. It would be valid for me to just make up my own deontological view, predicate it to your view, and then just say, well, oh, well, it's valid. But you could just reject it because you don't hold the deontology, you hold the consequentialism. And in that same respect, if you hold the consequentialism and just make up some consequentialist framework and how my view could theoretically work, make it the fuck up, and then just predicate and just put it on my view, then I can just reject it because it's not my fucking view.
Okay,
What?
really quick.
Coco?
Really quick. One question, Zypher. Why doesn't God stop any evil? Just
Oh
like
my bro.
any. Why doesn't God
You know
stop
what,
any evil
Coco,
from
you're right.
happening?
You know what, Coco, you're right. Like,
We know.
if it means he's assigning value to the scenario, and
No,
that means
that's not what I'm
no,
asking.
you're right. You're right, bro. You're
I'm
right.
saying like
Right, you're right,
I
bro.
just
You're
want
right.
to
You're right.
hear.
You're right. You're right. You're right.
No. I just want to hear like because you've told us things,
I'm so
and then
done
like
with this, Coco.
then
You
like
keep doing
cancel out
this.
the things that you've told us. Like I don't. This is not coherent. So like
I mean,
very simply,
You're
I'm
right.
just
I'm
gonna ask you.
incoherent, dude.
Like I'm
well,
just gonna
no,
ask you like very
Coco,
simply.
read
Why
up on
doesn't God?
ontology. Just
Why?
read up on
no.
deontology.
Hold on, Zypher. Why doesn't God stop bad things from happening? Like very simply
Oh my
put.
bro. Yeah. There's a bunch of reasons, dude.
But give one.
There's many of them.
Okay,
Give 5.
give one.
It depends on the scenario.
Okay, but like one of them is gonna be he wants authentic relationships with us, and like he wants us to have free will, right?
Sure, but that's not how you view it. You don't view it as like, oh, he's trying to reach this goal. That's once again you viewing it from consequential under a deontological
So
framework.
how
You
should I view
don't
it?
hold on. You don't view it from like reaching a certain goal. It's not like reaching because that's reaching an event, reaching in a consequence.
It's rather, under a deontological view, it's just like some sort of duty or obligation that God has. And the duty or obligation or the rule that's set in place is
Why are
this, given
why
the
are certain
scenario.
duties chosen though? Why are certain duties chosen on the deontologist view? How does like moral facts become duty?
Actually, wait. Actually, really quick, before any of you two say
It
anything.
just
Wait, hold on,
is.
hold on. Before any of you two say anything, atheist preacher, am I just like dumb as fuck, or like, or like what's going on here? Like, am I just missing something?
Neither.
Like,
No, you've been making a very solid argument so far, and I think you've been very consistent. I think Zypher here has said a lot of things that have been contradictory. I think that he's brought things up in Scripture that are not actually in Scripture. I think he's adding things to it, which isn't good. And I just as far as this whole conversation goes, I'm very much enjoying it. But no, Coco, I think that you're making some solid sense.
Coco, can you bring up Jambar? He's pretty good
yeah.
in meta-ethical frame, meta-ethics and stuff like that. You could
Okay.
probably Jambar.
Yeah, Jimbo, if you want to come up, let's like get some clarification here. Let's see like where's the disconnect.
And I will agree that yeah, we are using viewing from a consequentialist, but it's just like to me, just obvious inferences of the view.
Yeah, it's just okay, but that's not how the Christian view works. It's not a consequentialist view.
But okay, all right. If I was gonna bring Jambar up here, but he might be busy, which is totally fine. Life happens. But,
The thing is, the
like,
problem
I would
is
say
that
we should probably
I
like
understand
pin
why
it
you
here and
guys
like move on to
use
the
the
next guest.
consequentialist views, because most atheists are consequentialists. So you guys are going to view it from that perspective, and it's hard for you guys to view
No,
it.
but Christian,
Other
even from the
than that
deontologist, I want to give you how does the deontologist, how did they choose what moral facts now can become a duty that which to follow?
You can't choose with moral facts. It would just be a matter of epistemology. It would just be a matter of like, how do you know what the moral facts are? The moral facts are the moral facts, and they've always been the moral facts from eternity. But
Okay. So like let's just pin it there. And like yeah, I got to get to the other guest. But yeah, let's just pin it there.
You just say that just exists or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
it's tied to God's nature. They just are, and then they just exist. But it's not a matter of like what the like how do you choose them? It's just they just exist, and how do you know which one are the facts?
Okay. So cool. But yeah, we'll continue this later. But it was nice having you, Zypher. Come back anytime. And yeah, that's really it. Okay. Hey guys. Yeah, I'm gonna be live for like a couple more hours. So yeah, if you guys can, please like the live, and thank you for all the gifts. I reinvested into this project I'm doing. I should be going live more often. I know I've said this like 2 or 3 times in the live, but I am preparing debate events, which atheist preacher is going to be debating no degree on the topic, is the Bible misogynistic, on the debate event that I have on July 11th. And that's going to be happening on my Day of Debates channel. So if you guys want to check that out, or if you guys are wondering what channel to follow, send me a DM and I will give that channel to you. But yeah, I host debates, I debate people, and I make content regarding Christianity. That's kind of my gig, and I will try to go live more often. Need to set up a schedule, and I've been lazy as fuck for the past couple of days. So Matt Reeves is like calling me out in the comments. Matt Reeves, if I bring you up here and you say some like basic ass shit, I'm probably gonna like lose my mind. You better have something like monumentally groundbreaking. But what's up, Matt Reeves? You want the smoke? What you got for us? Hey, speak up.
I said I've been waiting on you all day.
Okay. You sound like you're gonna give us something that's groundbreaking. So
No,
go ahead.
I have nothing that's groundbreaking. Your mind just ain't open enough, but that's okay. Why do
You might as well drop bro now.
Why do
You might as well drop bro now.
Jesus Christ of Nazareth.
Yeah,
Matt
you better
Reeves.
talk to him.
Matt Reeves, you were in the comments talking all this shit and like, all right, What you got for me,
Why
Matt?
do you
Please.
think you can put God in a box? You act like it's something we can just put in a box.
Is Matt Reeves a Christian? First of all.
Yeah,
I
he's
think
one
he
of
is.
he's one of those aggressive Christians. He was in the
No, I'm
Um.
not
comments like
aggressive. I'm not
he
aggressive. I try to be
yeah.
passive.
Well, yeah, but you were in the comments saying like I was scared of you, like I won't let you up, and
No,
it's
I
like
said you're scared to let
okay,
somebody debate me.
I'll
To let
happily
someone debate you on what?
I'll happily debate you right now.
Okay.
The question is, why does God condone child rape, mass confusion, evil Christians, and all sorts of evil?
He never has.
Bobby G and Atheist Preacher will judge the debate, and then we'll take an audience poll to see like, who won the debate. It'll just be an open
Okay.
cross-examination.
All right, go ahead.
So, how much time should we give this? Let me set a timer, and then
You
after
can do
that, I'm just
7 minutes.
gonna
7 minutes is fine.
7 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, we can do a 7-minute open cross-examination, and all right. So, that's the topic. Do you want me to explain why that's the topic, Matt?
Sure, you go ahead.
Okay, so I'm gonna define condone as accept and allow behavior that's considered morally wrong or offensive to continue, right? I say God is condoning child rape, mass confusion, evil Christians, all sorts of evil, because in this day and age, these things are happening, and I don't see any evidence of God doing anything to stop it. So it seems as if these things would be in accordance to his will, or part of the plan in order for him to either bring something good out of it or accomplish some goal down the lane. But do you disagree with my definition of condone, which basically means to just stand by, accept, and allow morally wrong or offensive behavior to continue?
Well, first I want to know, and I'll answer the question. Do you believe in God?
I'm agnostic.
So how are you going to blame all that on him?
Because I'm not blaming it on him, right? But what I'm doing is like an internal critique, or I'm not even sure if I'm doing that, right? I'm looking at society, and I'm assuming that God exists, right? And if God exists, which I guess I am doing an internal critique, he's allowing all this evil shit to happen in 2025, 2024, 2023, 2021. You can go back all the way till like the moments after Jesus left the earth. He's allowing all this terrible shit to happen, and he's not really doing anything about it. So I'm doing like an internal critique. Our world sucks. Where's God at?
Do you believe in God then?
No, that's not what an internal critique
You don't believe
is
there is
saying.
a God. Which one?
I don't believe in God, and for the sake of this thought experiment, I'm granting that God exists so I can critique the worldview that my opponent or the worldview that
No,
I'm
I'm
trying
not
to
worried about that. I'm
investigate
worried about
holds.
what you personally think.
I don't.
I don't think he wants to have a debate.
No,
Yeah,
I'm asking. This is very serious.
yeah, I don't believe in God. If you ask me, like, does God exist? I say I don't know.
So
That's
why
what
are you
needs
blaming him for these things?
Do you understand what internal critique is?
Yes, I understand that, but you're sitting there. Your
Okay,
whole
so
argument
that's
is,
what
I'm
I'm
going to blame
doing.
God
That's what I'm
for these
doing.
things instead of.
That's why we're blaming God, because we are granting that God exists for this thought experiment, and we see a fucked up world where God's not doing shit for anybody, and we're
Well,
asking, why is this the case?
you live on the best country this side of heaven. That's
Yeah, with a lot of fucked up things happening. That's irrelevant,
No,
right?
you tell yourself that.
The point is, Matt, that
What's the last time you
God.
talked to an
Hey,
old
Coco, I'm gonna
God.
judge, and you won.
Okay,
Let's
thanks.
do this. You don't need to do this any longer. You
We
won.
can. We can.
I mean, already it's deteriorated on Matt's side.
Okay,
I'm not
Matt.
being mean.
I mean, Matt, he's Coco's
we
trying
have to be able
really
to have a
hard.
conversation.
Matt, Coco's trying really hard to be very simple and clear for you.
No, he wasn't. In the
So
beginning, he said
yes,
that he didn't believe in God. That's why I had to establish that rock.
no, Matt. He's saying that in his personal belief, he does not believe in God. But for the sakes of this argument that you and him are having, he is granting you that the Christian God exists. And if that is true, that the Christian God exists, why is it that the world is in the state that it is in today?
Yeah,
Do you
that's what's being
understand?
argued.
Do you understand the difference between the two?
Do y'all think it's a lack of morality?
We're not
Oh,
even
God.
there. We're asking
Oh,
you to
God.
understand like what we've said.
I just asked the question again. Nobody.
Yeah,
But can you answer ours first?
Yeah, we asked you a question. Why are you
We just want
asking
to
me a
make sure we're
question?
on the same page.
Well, A, we're probably not going to be on the same page because I believe in Jesus Christ. But
No.
We're
We're
ask
just
a
asking if you
question in a real
understand
way.
what we said.
all right, let me
Listen,
just.
listen,
Do you
guys.
understand what
It
we
ain't
said?
that serious. We got to ask the
Okay.
question in a real way. It can't be that I stand on this, but I'm posing the question this way for talking purposes.
Matt,
You either feel the way you do or you don't. That's what I'm
Matt,
saying.
look, let me say it again. None of us believe in God,
Fair.
but for the conversation, we are granting that God exists so we can engage in a thought experiment. Do you understand that?
Clearly. I said that while ago.
Okay, so given that, right, we're looking at the world that's currently fucked up after granting that God exists, and we're asking, why is the world fucked up given that the Christian God of the Bible exists?
Where is it so fucked up first? That's what I want to know
Okay,
first.
we can talk about the Roman Catholics who thousands of priests or hundreds or thousands of priests have been raping people left and right so much that the Roman Catholic Church has been sued in an extraordinary amount to the point where they are now saving funds to deal with sexual assault court cases.
Let me agree with you and also tell you where you're wrong. B, look, they have been sued that much. They're not worried about it. The Vatican is the biggest bank on the planet. So when
That's
one
the
falls,
issue.
it's
That's
no
the
problem.
issue. That's
I
the
don't
issue.
disagree with you on the other part.
Yeah, God is standing idle, doing nothing,
No.
because people get raped by Catholic priests all the time.
He's not. No, he's
He's
not.
not. So okay, so demonstrate to me what God has done to deal with people getting raped by Catholic priests.
Well, A, he's the ultimate judge at the end of all time. He's going to let some things
That
play
is
out.
not telling me what he's doing in
You didn't let me finish.
2025. You're telling me that you're
he's
telling me that he's a judge. What is he doing in 2025
he's letting
to
things
deal
play out.
with? Okay. Wait. Hold on. Did you say that he's letting it play out?
Well, you believe in free will, don't you?
Okay, I agree with you, right? So the topic of this live,
I
like
saw it.
you could literally swap out condone with letting it play out.
No, you can't.
So
Condone and let it play
why
out.
does the Christian God let it play out? Child rape, mass confusion, evil Christians, and all sorts of evil.
That means
Condone?
he agrees with it. He don't agree with it.
Thank you.
But letting it play out's a whole nother story.
That's what I'm saying.
Letting it play out's two different things.
Okay, I agree with you. God agrees with the fact that people should get raped right
No,
now.
we don't. See, there you go.
You literally just said it. You just gave it to me.
No, I didn't. I said he's letting it play out. But condoning means I agree with my child acting like an ass when they go to school.
No, that's not what condoning means. When
Yes,
you look,
it does. That means you co-sign.
okay, check it out. So you're saying that it means cosine, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna flip my camera. I'm gonna go to my PC, and on my PC it says condone from the Oxford Dictionary. It means to
accept and allow
accept
behavior.
or allow behavior, right? So you told me that he's letting it happen.
No, I said he. Well, yes, I did.
Okay,
But I didn't. I did
I
not
did.
say
So
that he condoned it.
So God is allowing it, right, to happen, to continue, right? Why is he doing that? And
Hey, that's not a
that
true
entailment
definition.
is going to mean condone. God is allowing it, letting it happen.
Allowing
so
and
he's
accepting
condoning
are two
it.
different words. Give me the
Allow-
definition of allow and accept. I bet you won't do it.
We can do it. Yeah, we can do allow. I think I guarantee you, allow is going to mean the same thing as letting it happen.
Allow and accept are two different words.
Allow definition to give someone permission to do something or to give necessary time or opportunity for.
What does accept mean?
That's irrelevant, but
No, that's the other one that was on there.
yeah, but do you see these definitions, right?
You can say what you want and feel how you want.
Wait,
Where do you get your moral compass? How
I'm
about
not
that?
okay. Don't pivot the conversation. You're pivoting.
All right, well, go ahead.
Just tell
Go
me.
ahead.
Tell me.
Go
Do
ahead.
you acknowledge these two definitions?
I know that my God does not like the ugliness that's going on
Do
right
you
now.
acknowledge that this is what allow means? Do you acknowledge that?
No, that wasn't the original definition.
So you're denying the Oxford Dictionary's definition of allow.
I'm acknowledging that in 1951 they changed every textbook on the planet.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you are denying the current Oxford Dictionary's
I'm not worried about a current
definition.
definition.
So what are we doing here?
The current definition of racism has changed. The current definition of everything has changed.
Okay, all right. I think I'm done with that. I don't think that's going anywhere. Thank you for that.
Did so well. You were trying so patiently to be as clear as possible with him. You provided the definitions. If that was a genuine conversation on his end, then I hope that he truly looks into, what it's like to be intellectually honest in a conversation and what you need to be logical in your position.
Yeah. I mean, I've had conversations like that where you have to be very patient. It would take at least 2 hours, but you can get there. You just need to have a point.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say on that one. But
it was strange, that's for sure.
Yeah. But Kai, what you got for us? What you got for us, Kai?
Hey, what's going on, man? How you guys doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right.
I'm doing well. I hope that you're doing well as well.
Yeah, no, of course. I like browsing. I like to see people like different type of opinions and such. I'm a Christian myself, but I do find it a little ambiguous that like the statement that God condones evils. So when you say that God condones certain evils, do you say that in an absolute sense, or is that just going to be relatively the case?
What do you mean by absolute sense and relatively the case?
So absolute meaning it's going to be a statement or proposition that is going to be true dependent of the circumstance. So like, for example, when we talk about the day of Christ returning, then there's going to be like judgment on evil. So in that sense, I hold to B theory. So I have this idea of God in which he exists outside of space and time. So he doesn't experience sequence in the same way that a created things do. So since there's no sequence in an absolute sense, like in an ontological sense, then he's already passed judgment on these things.
Yeah. Okay, so even if that's the case, let's say like everything has already happened, like if that's the case, everything has already happened. Currently in our time period, we are experiencing like a lot of evils. We see evils like all around us, right? And I don't see any evidence of like God doing anything to stop it. And like when I talk to Christians, it seems as if God's kind of just like sitting and like watching all of this happen, or it already happened, but like he doesn't seem to really be doing anything to stop these evils. And the only time that he's going to do anything to stop these evils is when he comes back during the end times to fulfill, prophesize, like, details of like Revelation. So essentially, like, I'm going to define condone as like, accept or allow behavior that is morally wrong or offensive to continue. And God hasn't really done anything to stop things like
Also,
Roman Catholics raping people in like mass amounts, or evil Christians, terrible Christians on this app that mistreat atheists and claim to be Christ-like or trying to be Christ-like and they're the most horrific people.
Also, I'm also not sure how the B theory helps you here, right? Even if you say all points of time has been instantiated, from my perspective, it's more of a temporal notion, like, if defining time by a sequence of change, right? So, in some point, you could say that maybe some point in this timeline, God is making this act, but in this particular point where um this agent in this particular slice of time where this agent is being violated, God is still is not acting. This is not the act. I'm not too sure why. Even if you say this, why it matters.
Right. So the question I asked him, because there's a distinction here between like modality. So depending on like which modality you hold to, it could be some type of absolute modality or like a relative one. And what I'm invoking here is that it could be the case that if you're saying that he condones the act insofar as a relative modality, in the sense that by us experiencing time, and then there are evils that occur within this relative sense. If you were to say that he condones it in an absolute sense, then the statement would be false that he condones it.
Wait, okay, so you're essentially saying that, like, in an absolute sense, it's kind of like looking at the bigger picture that he's going to punish it eventually. But, like, in a relative sense to, like, our specific period of time,
In the absolute sense, it's already been punished because from all points in time, all actions have already been instantiated. From a relative
yeah.
sense, though, from an absolute sense, it will be false. From a relative sense, it'll be true in a sense. So I guess it will depend on the modality of this kind of conversation.
I mean, yeah, so,
Yeah,
so,
but that's what
so,
I'm saying. We're having the conversation from a relative sense, though.
yeah, like, this whole entire, like, life has probably been, like, in a relative sense. Like, as of right now, we're not really seeing anything. It looks pretty bad.
Okay, wait. So let me ask, and like, you're doing an internal critique on the faith, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if it is true, and hypothetically, right? If it is true that B theory is something that applies to God, then if you're doing an internal critique, why would you still hold to that relative position?
So, yeah, I would say, like, um, if everything's already happened, right? Cool, we can grant that. But essentially, what it seems like is that God doesn't see the need to, like, stop any evils from happening right now. He's saying that eventually he's going to punish them. And if it's already happened, then yeah, God has come, fulfilled revelation, and punished the evils. But for a good period of time, regardless, right? He's just allowed it to happen. He hasn't prevented any grapes, any robberies, vicious murders. He's just kind of like letting these things happen because eventually they're going to get punishment. So condone for me, right, is just going to be he's standing idle or allowing these things to happen, and he's not really doing anything to stop it for, like, his plan or goal or whatever the case may be. So, like, I guess the question I'll ask you, right, is like, you have people who believe in God. They go to church. The priest grapes them. They have religious trauma, right? God is basically standing idle for that, right? Like, he didn't stop it. It happened. It occurred. And people have to, like, live their lives with that, like, pain and suffering, right? I mean, where was God? What did God do? Would you say, like, yeah, he's like, he's kind of staying idle and not really doing anything, right? He just allowing it to happen because eventually he's going to punish it in the end? Wouldn't you say, like, that would be an accurate interpretation of that?
Yeah, I would say that, like, your argument in terms of like validity, like the way you're using condone, and which I would say the like way you're using it within the argument is like valid in itself. The issue I'm having though is that if you were to be presented with a separate syllogism in which condone doesn't mean, I guess like allowance, but let's say like condone means permissible or to make something or to like to approve of something, then it would be almost antithetical to your definition of what condone means because it would lead to two different consequences.
Yeah. But, like, yeah, I just would disagree with that definition. Like, I'm not saying God thinks that grape is good, right? Like, obviously, God has laws in the Bible. He doesn't think, like, certain things are good. Sin is a transgression of God, right? But he doesn't think these things are good. But he doesn't feel the need to stop these things, right? He thinks that these things should happen right now, and eventually I'm going to come around and, like, punish these things. So like I would just disagree with that definition of condone. It's not like he's writing into law like people should grape people and grape is good, but he thinks that grape it's not that he doesn't think that grape should happen. He thinks that grape is bad, it shouldn't happen, but he thinks that don't I shouldn't interfere here and grape can happen for right now because eventually I'm gonna bring something good out of it, essentially. So, like, I think like finding it permissible is probably an incorrect definition of like condoning it. Condoning is more of like a passive, like allowing it to happen. You're not like endorsing it or writing it into law.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Condone itself is like a polysemitic word, but I do see where you're coming from. I would suggest that maybe, shoot, let me see if I can articulate this. So, I lost my train of thought. I was freaking listening to you speak. Hold on. Give me a second to reboot for a second.
No, you're good. It happens. But while you're doing that, everybody, if you can, please tap your screens, like the live. It's going to help share out the live so we can get more people. Thank you guys for the gifts. I do reinvest it into this account. Sorry I haven't been doing lives lately. I've been working on debate events. I host debates, professional, formal debates. Anybody can debate. We're actually looking for as many debates as possible. Just send me a DM. We'll set it up. Well, I can match you up with an opponent, or you can choose your own opponent, and you could also choose the topic. But that's typically what I do here.
Okay, so from the Christian paradigm, from that worldview, if a moral statement is if a moral statement within the Christian paradigm is something that you ought to follow, and also within that paradigm, there are antithetical means by which you oppose that ought. Would you say that would you say that God in the same way still condones that act, even though the ought is the contrary?
Yes. So I think that ultimately, I can grant you that God thinks that we ought not grape each other, right? We ought not do these things. But God is also making the decision that given the goals or the end desire that I have, right? It's better off if I don't do anything to punish or stop people from graping each other because I'm going to bring something good out of it. So God, I guess this is sort of what Zypher was getting at, right? God thinks that grape is a bad thing, but he also thinks that it's a good thing he doesn't do anything to stop grape. So he sits idle while grape happens. So essentially I would say, yeah, God can think we ought not do anything and still condone behaviors because he's making the choice that he thinks is better off if he doesn't do anything to stop those behaviors from happening or punish any of those behaviors, at least in this current moment. I guess not in an objective sense like you were saying, but in this current moment, he thinks people should be running around doing, he thinks I shouldn't stop anybody from running around doing things. And yeah, I'm going to stay idle and just allow that to happen.
I got you. So would you say that all instrumental if you take compare an instrumental statement, would you say that compare an instrumental statement to a moral statement? We could say that moral statements are things that you ought do, right? If within the worldview of Christianity. But if you were to take something instrumental, would you then have some type of connective, say that this instrumental thing is good or evil, or can the instrumental thing just remain neutral?
Dumb that down for me. I don't really know what you're saying per se.
For example, we can say, let's take a patient who has some type of disability, but he desires to go to the gym, so he does go to the gym. Now, in most cases, when people go to the gym, they work out, they get stronger. But for some reason, this patient, when he goes to the gym and works out and he lifts weights and he hits cardio and everything, he's not receiving any type of benefits. So in this case, when I say in something that is it possible for something to be instrumentally neutral, in the sense that insofar as there are no moral connectives?
Um, I mean, I guess, but like, are you trying to imply that like God is allowing evil to happen right now, given His goals, and like the evil that's happening right now is like instrumentally neutral?
What I'm saying is, given the goals, if if we're using like your definition of condoning something, from God's perspective, then from God's perspective, I'm maybe arguing that it might be the case that instead of it having some type of instrumental goodness or being like instrumentally evil, maybe I'm positing from like God's perspective, it is absolutely going to be the case that this act is evil. However, within the like in the relative sense of its instrumental value, it's not going to have any moral connectives from God's perspective.
Okay, whenever you say it's not going to have any moral connectives, what do you mean by moral connectives?
So a connective, it's like so yeah, I'm pretty sure you know what a conjunct is, right?
No, but I could learn. I'm not super
Uh,
smart when it comes to those things.
It's like a conjunct or like a disjunct. So a conjunct would be essentially two propositions that are connected by a connective. This
Oh,
connective would be like an and. So you're basically connecting. You're having a compound proposition essentially.
okay.
What I'm positing though, and what might be the case is that or really what I'm asking you, can it be the case that something can be like instrumental while without having any type of moral connective?
Okay, so you're basically asking like can something be like useful without being like either good or bad?
Not necessarily. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, that's what instrumental means. But if in a strictly relative sense, if we were to take a person, let's say who's like strict like subjectivist, who believes that all of reality is just subjective and contingent on the mind, right? And they
Yeah.
believe that they were to commit to like some type of evil act, then for that person it would have instrumental value, but it would be kind of, and maybe I'm butchering this analogy, but it would be kind of separate from the moral connective itself. So it would be instrumental insofar that it's like useful to that person, but it
Are,
doesn't. I
are you
don't, I don't think it would necessarily mean like pragmatic in any sense
are
or
you are
serve
you also
utility.
like a deontologist?
I'm
Okay.
sorry.
I think it finally connected for me. I know what you're saying, but go ahead, Bobby.
Are you also a deontologist as well?
No, I don't even know what deontology is.
Okay. Well, it's kind of almost. It seems like we're kind of invoking the same language. But I think we're mistaken. So, to me, then I'm not too sure what kind of framework you're kind of holding to. Are you saying that, like, for this example, like God has no like value judgment to the proposition of agents having free will?
No, there are going to be I'm positing kind of like two separate categories of things here. So there are value judgments insofar as like the one category of things you ought not to do. But in a separate category in which I'm saying in a relative sense, there could possibly be the case in which I can conceive of anyway, in which a person commits to an act that is still going to be wrong in an absolute sense, but in a relative sense, it is just going to have the it's just going to be instrumental without any moral connectives.
In the relative sense?
Yeah,
Can
like
you,
not so not in the absolute
can you
sense.
give an example?
So an example of
Like
something being relatively.
yeah, it's like this, like some kind of um something that has instrumental but has no like value.
Okay,
And
so like let's take like a society who thinks slavery is justified.
okay,
Within that society is going to be like relatively the case that slavery is permissible within that society alone. However, it wouldn't have any bearings on the absolute fact that if there is, let's say, suppose the Christian God, if within the Christian paradigm exists, then it would be absolutely wrong that like, slavery would be wrong here. I mean, I know you can go to like the Old Testament, but this is just for the sake of an analogy.
so just because that's this relative, like it's just because that in this slavery example is relative that slave exists, but from the absolute sense that has no bearings that the wrongness or rightness.
It would have no bearings in like yeah. So it's exactly like what you said. It would have no bearings in the absolute sense, but in a relative sense, you can have a case in which instrumental things can have like pragmatic value, or you can have the connective of the goodness and the evil to it. I'm positing though, is it possible for it to be the case that you can have something that is instrumental divorced from the moral connectives
Are you saying more in the relative sense or the absolute sense?
in a relative sense?
In the relative sense, I mean, it could be possible. I'm not too sure how practical, how. I mean, there's no logical contradiction I could think of, but I don't know if that's how we practically live our lives.
I agree. Like
Yeah.
it wouldn't normatively be the case, but if we're talking about in the like if he's doing an internal critique, then if he's doing an internal critique, then if we're assuming that position like to be true, like, at least for this moment, then relatively it could be the case that there are instrumental occurrences that happen, and those are without any type of moral connectives. At least if you can conceive
Yeah,
of it
but how
being
would you
true.
relate this back to God and allow him? You're saying that God has no, has doesn't have any critical attitude towards child rapists.
No, how I bring that back to God is that in a relative sense, if it's divorced from any moral, if you can divorce it from moral connectives, it is not necessarily the case that, in a relative sense, that the statement itself is a moral claim.
Oh, good. My understanding is that what you're saying that is your instrumental bit, like it could be instrumental, but not have some kind of like value to it, right? So it's just a pragmatic kind of utility.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it can have like pragmatism to it. However, like something being pragmatic doesn't necessarily entail that it has any
like
goodness to
more,
it.
if you're tying it back to God, and it's a great case. You're just saying that God is like amoral to this proposition
It,
of child rapists. That he just doesn't. He almost, you could say that he doesn't care. He just, there's no attitude towards this happening
Like in a relative case,
in a relative case,
um,
because that's what we're
like
arguing.
yeah, like in a relative case, I mean, that's an intriguing proposition. Like God would be amoral to the facts if they were just like pure, if they were in the relative framework in what you guys are talking about. So I would say like this, that like I guess like for the sake of argument, the proposition itself would just simply just be it wouldn't necessarily entail any type of moral connectives. So it would just be kind of just a proposition of like a fact of that occurs within God, and
Isn't that what I said? You just
I
just like
think
with
so.
slavery, it just has this use, but no moral connective.
Yeah, sure, it wouldn't be a moral connective.
Yeah, so that's the same thing. Like, by the time when you tie it back to the God and like the free with the free will. Free will and utility and the child rapist is just, he's just kind of like letting it happen, but there's no like, he's not giving like a positive or negative value to it.
Yeah, like okay, so in the case of free will, so free will is something that I would conceive of like so the way I look at it is free will is something that would be also a relative notion. So like in the grander sense, if I'm holding to B theory and all of these occurrences have already happened, then from God, I mean, it's really hard to argue free will in that sense because everything has already happened according to God's will. However, in the sense of like if you were to take a woman who experiences like sequence and stuff like that, and they have at least this illusion that they have free will, then it's going to be like relatively the case that they are acting upon their free wills, and therefore they can attach moral judgments upon instrumental things, or they can divorce moral judgments, or they can divorce the moral judgments from the instrumental fact.
Yeah, I don't see. I'm not holding that. Like, I mean, even if God has this understanding, if this God holds the B theory of time, or has this understanding, it doesn't take away from you, at least from your understanding of free will being the case, right? I'm not saying that. I think the conversation that's in question, right, is hey, in this relative sense that we're speaking, um, does you're saying that God has no particular attitude towards this um grape situation? I mean, there's
Well,
something
yeah.
that's it's just like instrument, like whatever this scenario is just instrumental for whatever reason. It's just
Well, yeah,
that's
like
not.
so what I would oppose to like the host, for example, is like the argument itself. I would oppose the entire like I wouldn't say the argument is not valid, but when we're talking about something being valid and something being and we're talking about like truth value, then I would just reject the truth value of the entire argument because when you're saying condone an application to God, and an application to God, B theory exists, he exists outside of time, these things are true, then it wouldn't be the case. It wouldn't be true that he condones these actions.
Right. So
Because you're holding to an absolute sense. Right?
Yeah. So I would just reject the entire argument.
Yeah, but Coco's clearly speaking from the relative sense.
yeah. So like I would even agree with you in an absolute sense. Um, in an absolute sense, yeah, like God's not necessarily like condoning these actions. Like eventually he's gonna punish it. And technically, B theory of time, he's already punished it, right? If we're doing an internal critique. But given a relative sense, right, for this specific period, choosing not to punish it and like just like standing idle while these things happen. And I guess like that's kind of the sense we've been talking about this entire time. So I guess like technically, from like, um, I'm new to these kind of like words per se, but like technically from an objective sense, I think you said, like you'd have an argument, you'd probably like win the dialectic there, but then like from a relative sense, like yeah, we're kind of just
Yeah,
going.
because speaking from a relative sense, not speaking. He's saying, but he's saying it's invalid because you're not. I guess you're not doing a proper internal critique of God. But like, maybe there's something to be said there. I might give him that, depending on how it's going about the internal critique. But clearly, even with the internal critique, we're talking from a relative sense. As agents, this is all we understand.
Yeah, in a
Yeah,
linear timeline.
I get like it's like if we were like let's say like we were like actually debating, like I would simply just pose the argument that there is a seemingly there at least is a seemingly conflation of categories there. So when you say that God condones something, and then you're also speaking in the same sense in a relative case, well, God is not a relative entity; He's an absolute entity. So if you're doing an internal critique, you have to speak in the sense of just the absolutes from God's perspective. But however, you're speaking from the sense of just the relative sequence that you experience as a human being, which is not proper to
Yeah,
God.
we get.
Well, not necessarily. Like I think God is both like a relative and a like I think the relative and the objective do apply to God, because like yes, he is outside of space and time, right? But he still he still can go. He literally came down as Jesus. He can go to a certain time period, right, and analyze that reality in a relative sense. So like God has access to like a relative sense and like an objective sense. So and he by example switches between both worlds, right?
Cool, that's the point.
Any switch, well, if you're doing an internal critique, any switch would just make God mutable, in which we as I think if you hold to any
I
type
mean,
of doctrine at least, then we would
Coco's
deny
not
that God
saying
is
he's
mutable.
switching, right? Coco's saying that God, yeah, all points of time has been instantiated, right? God chooses to act at certain points in time for different agents, right?
yeah.
Um,
So God can swap between like relative and objective senses, right? So like
it's not absolute, it's not objective.
or yeah, absolutes. Yeah, like I'm new to the terms that he's using, but like relative and absolute, right? So like technically both apply to God, because in the Bible at many different points he's like in our reality in a relative sense, but then according to like what you believe, in B theory of time, right? He, everything exists to him in a absolute sense. So like both apply to him. Um, so I guess you could really critique him at either from either
Yeah,
angle.
you're not giving an argument for Coco's actually right here. Not gonna argument because God does. Yeah, all points to because in under this view, right, this Aristotelian metaphysics, God, God, um, God's for us agents, God's actions has already instantiated, but for us it'd be either in the state of potentiality or actuality. But that still means that God acts, acts for us at different points in time. Yeah, we could say that God is. God has made some judgments, like some actions that have already been done at some point. But we're talking about like in this particular instance, the same sense that you know, um, a policeman sees like someone about to be raped or something, and he chooses to act. He wouldn't wait till Monday to act, right? He will act then.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. So like kind of to bring this like back to the point that I was like originally making is that like Saint Gregory of Palamas has a quote in which is to kind of say in a at least in like in an absolute sense that we cannot apply like cataphatic and apophatic statements to God insofar as that all of our apophatic and cataphatic statements are going to be they won't capture the totality of what the being God is. So like say like God is omnipotent and such, it would be something that sort of like transcends that category. So it would just be more than the statement itself. So in the case of like when we see God interact with creation, in this sense, and at least how the tradition interprets it anyway, is that most of these, if not all of these cases, are more so like anthropomorphic in the sense that we as human beings, we experience these things, but insofar as God, like there is not going to be like a relative instance in which he ever interacts in the way that humans says he interacts. So it's just going to be like a that kind of like a census divisus type deal in which like we have the experience, we experience the sequence, but when proper to God, it's not an experience of any type of sequence whatsoever. So it's not a point in time where he just chooses to act. He's been acting the entire time.
We grant that. Didn't I already grant that? We're talking about for us is a sequence.
Okay, so if you're granting that, what I'm saying is that in this sense, then it's not going to be relative.
What do you mean? It's relative for us.
Okay, but in the case of because he was arguing, God, in the case of God, it was absolute and relative.
No, Coco is saying that God. We understand that from God's perspective is absolute, right? God, because God's actions are already being instantiated. From the agents, we still have a more of a temporal notion of understanding these things, right? God has displayed in the Bible that He's able to act in a way that is in line with our temporal notions. Not saying that because from our perspective, God's actions is either in the state of potentiality or actuality, right? They've already been instantiated. They're either just pending or already happened. But it becomes temporal for us, but it's already actualized for God, already been instantiated for God rather. So what Coco is saying that if God has acted and displayed this in the Bible, like we could have those examples, it still follows that God is type, intervene in that particular slice. He just I guess he never instantiate that will to do so.
Wait, okay. So if it was true that God were to intervene at a particular point in time after everything else has been instantiated, then that would go against the instantiation itself.
Yeah, exactly. He never instantiated. He never felt a need to want to um stop from the beginning. He never felt the need to instantiate a will to stop the child rapist.
But also, like, but in the same sense, in an absolute sense, and proper to God, He's already instantiated the fact
Yeah, he
that
instantiated later
everybody who
on,
commits
but he
evil.
instantiated, but from a absolute from the timeline, it's at some point later than whatever instance that actual action has been occurred.
Okay, so we can. Okay, so this is what I do in temporal framework, in the way we perceive time as a sequence. Then it would be true to us that God does not intervene. However, if you're making this proper to God as
I'm
that's
never
the
too
state.
sure, but he intervenes in the Bible. How you saying making that claim?
I'm sorry.
He intervenes a lot in the Bible. Like he like what he's saying when I'm using intervene, right? I'm saying like he's making himself known, or like how do I use the word intervene? Like when he's God makes himself known to agents in the Bible. It seems right. He's talking to Moses and stuff like that. So I'm not too sure what is being meant here. Why when you say God's not intervening?
Wait, hold
Yeah,
on,
so
but,
like
but,
you have
but really
like
quick, let me pause it there real quick, and let me just say like hi to a couple people, and let's take a little like mini break. But what's up, Grandpa? What's up, Raven? Hey, good to see you
Hey,
guys.
what's going on, big guy?
Hey, is this conversation like overwhelming you guys too? Like, but it's pretty cool.
I mean, hey, I'm just since I'm currently tuning in during the middle of it, I don't want to interfere. I would rather just sit on the standby and get new guests so we can start a fresh loop. But for the two you have right here, I'm gonna just sit quiet and just listen.
Okay. Well, we'll try to get to the next guest pretty soon. But yeah, Kai and Baji will like finish up. While we're doing that, everyone that's here, we got 43 people in the live. Thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate it. Thank you for all the gifts. I just reinvested back into my channel. I haven't been doing live recently because I've been setting up debate events. I host formal debate events. Sometimes with judges, sometimes without judges. That's kind of what I do on my channel. You can find all of the previous ones I've done on YouTube. I've hosted like 10 events on TikTok, and I've been doing this for like a year and like some months. But yeah, go check that out. But I am gonna probably get back into like streaming more often. I've been busy, like working with people, setting up those debates and all sorts of stuff. So thank you for the gifts. Thank you for the likes.
Please send me it when you get a chance to. Send me the link and everything so I can check it out because I would love to see these events.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, and like I set people up with like an opponent, or you can choose your opponent, anyone on TikTok, and like we can choose a topic, and it has time sections, and we can choose judges that you and your opponent
I
agree
love
on.
that.
Yeah, like it's been really fun. I've got to network with so many people. Sorry if I'm taking up too much time, but like I've had some pretty cool guests on my channel. There was this guy named Saiten Brugen Kids who was a Christian that I watched growing up, and even though I'm not a Christian, I thought he was a pretty good like pastor or debater. He came out of retirement to debate on my channel. He used to debate publicly and do apologetics publicly, so I got him on my channel. I've gotten Monkey Boy on my channel. I've gotten Voice of Reason on my channel. I've gotten Ian on my channel. I've gotten some
You
pretty
got
big.
Ian? I must have
You
missed
like
one.
skin Ian with the glasses, Ian? Fluffy hair,
Yeah,
Ian?
white. Yeah, like yeah,
What?
and that was pretty fun. And like I'd like to get him again, but like he's pretty popular, and like I think we're on good terms. He's pretty cool. There was one time.
That's kind of like invited to the 14th Amendment. That's not a per state thing. There's a revision in it, just like in any one of my own bills.
Oh, Bobby, I think you might be getting the audio from another live or something. But yeah, like it's been pretty cool. He debated on my channel against Jason. I've gotten Jason on my channel, the one that does the early morning lives. And also he debated Bought by Blood on my channel, and even rendered an argument with a bunch of premises and stuff. So yeah, like I love what I do, networking with people, hosting debates. It's been really amazing and fun, and I'm gonna continue doing that.
I someone be getting like a glitch where like you accidentally slide or whatever, and then all of a sudden you get like no, but not only do you slide, like someone's live starts playing on the panel.
Yeah, it happens. But honestly, with that, like the live, thank you for the gifts, but yeah, I understand what you're saying. Like glitch happens sometimes, even right now. Yeah.
Hit them shares, maybe hit them likes, hit them tabs. Come on now, get your guest up, get your host up.
So I
Yeah.
guess the argument that God doesn't intervene.
But
Well,
yeah,
it's not that so it's not that he necessarily doesn't intervene at all because I would see that he created all things, right? But we have two different methodologies for what it is to intervene on something, and maybe you would agree on this. So you have when we say that somebody intervenes on a commits to like an action or intervenes in a case, then you can say that this is true in a temporal sense. But you can also say that intervention in a completely different sense would be true in an eternal sense, proper to God. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so if
I
that
mean,
is true,
from this metaphysics way, understanding God, then yeah.
yeah, like okay, so if that is true,
All right.
would you agree that any statement that is made proper to the God that we're discussing, which is going to be the Christian God, it would have to be spoken of in absolutes?
But it would just follow that from an absolute sense. God when God instantiate His will, it follows that at this particular point in time, from a relative sense, God did not intervene, but later chose to like dish out some kind of punishment later on, and that's what Coco's been saying this whole time.
Yeah, but there's not a later one because you just said God speaks in absolute.
Yeah, so it's relative from the agents. I'm talking from the agent's point of view.
Okay, so back to what I said earlier. I asked you a question. The question was any
Yeah,
state
from the
proper
absolute
to.
standpoint, yeah, it's true. It's true, right? That from one when the God when God instantiates this will, that that agent that agent was violated, but also not only was the agent violated and no one stopped the violation, it's also true that God punishes the predator or whatever.
Violator, yeah.
Yeah, so both are true in this instantiation, and it's also true that God did not stop this violator. He just punishes him later.
Yeah,
They're
I would
both
disagree.
true.
I would disagree that it would be only true in the sense of just like a relative case.
No, no, it's true from the absolute case that it's true that God did not. If he punished the violator, did not stop the violation.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. So is it true now, like in a temporal sense, that God has not punished the violators?
No, in the absolute sense, God has punished the violator, but you also agree that it's true that God did not stop the violation.
Okay, so like a clarifying question. So to condone something means that if an act was committed. Okay, let me just ask again. When you say something is condoned, what do you mean by that?
Coco, what definition? I haven't been paying attention to that. What definition? Because there's been like 20 definitions that came out.
Okay, so yeah, so when it comes to condone, if you're asking me to like define it like off the top of my head, I would say condone means to like stay idle or to like allow for something to happen or do nothing to stop something from happening. But if we're looking at the Oxford Dictionary, the Oxford Dictionary is going to define it as to accept and allow behavior that is considered morally wrong or offensive to continue. So I think from like a temporal sense, or no, not a temporal sense, or like I forgot the two words. I keep forgetting the two words.
Atemporal.
Huh? Say it one more time.
Atemporal sense.
Or an atemporal or temporal sense, like, or right now in our current reality, right? Like God is just allowing for like Roman Catholic rape to continue to happen. Like I don't see God stopping it from happening, right? And He's doing the same thing for all sorts of other crimes. Like He's not really stepping in. Well, like in the Bible, God is constantly stepping in to prevent things or do things or interfere in human affairs. So I would say God condoned a lot less in the Bible than He's condoning right now in our reality.
Okay, that's good. So would you take the meaning of condoning something? Would that be a passive word, or would that be something that is more so active?
I would say that it's like a passive word. God is like standing idle and doing nothing to like allow to stop any of these things from like happening. And like I said before, He's not writing it into law. He's not saying like people should grape or people should rob, but like He's seeing these bad things happen, and He's like, I'm not going to do anything for now. Eventually, I'm going to come back and fulfill the prophecy of Revelation.
Okay, so like based on like okay, perfect. So based on the definition of kind of like the God we were discussing and being completely absolute, is that same if you were to make a statement like proper to that God, would that God that we're describing passive or active?
Um, I guess he would be active. It really depends on what point in time you're referring to. I guess he's active during the time period of the Bible, and he's active during the time period of like when Revelation inevitably occurs. But if we're going to the year of 2025 in the timeline, I would say God's not very active.
Okay, yeah, so that's interesting. Okay, so if God is if we're granting B theory to be true, and this would entail that there is like no type of change, because to change would entail that you're within time. So if B theory is true and God is eternally acting, and he's also
Actually, but wait, how would that be entailed? Like change is just like a passing of time, or like someone asserting their influence and altering something in reality. So given B theory of time, like, I mean,
yeah, well, so you think things? Do you think things can change apart from time?
No.
Okay, so if God is eternally acting outside of time, that would make God active by definition, and wouldn't fit the definition of condoning.
Wait, how is that entailed? Wait, what?
Yeah, because to condone something is a passive word in which you just conceded. But if condone is a passive word, and God, and any statement of God and God himself and all of his character and nature is an active metaphysical entity, then as an active metaphysical entity, it would be logically impossible to say that this God who is active and metaphysical could be passive.
Well, I mean, like, that's going to be given like the period of time, though.
Yeah,
Like,
when you're saying active here, right? Are we just saying that God is pure act, right? And all points of time is all actions have been actualized, right? But as from it's true that God's will, that again he's the violate God did not God did not God did not choose to interfere with the violation, but it's also true that God punishes the violator. I'm not these are why I'm not too sure. Are we just now talking about the definition of condoning? Are we talking about the
If
proposition
he's
that's
using,
on the prompt?
if the definition of condoning that he's applying here, it just wouldn't. It would be conflating categories on the merits of if condoning means to be if condoning is passive, and then you're applying that to an active physical necessary being who is just pure acts, then you're conflating categories with them.
Even if you throw away the definition, it's still true that God is allowing violation.
How would that be? How would that fit the definition of condoning if it's passive?
I'm not no no I'm not saying that. I'm not even going to the definition. Like I'm saying that through this metaphysics through B theory metaphysics that we're using for God, right? It's true that all points of time are instantiated. It's true that is a point where God did not interfere or did not intervene with the violation. It's true that God punishes the violator, right? As far as like how to define that with a better word, I can't give you right now. I'm just saying this is the proposition.
So intervening like with the violator at that point in time, that again is just going to go back to the perspective of just mankind and how they view the world. It's not going to be proper to God at that point. So again, you still have you still have different ontologies that you're describing.
What do you mean? How is it if God doesn't interfere with the violator? What do you like? How is it? What do you mean by it will be relative to man? Like
yeah, so it would that proposition would be conceptually true, but it wouldn't be absolutely true.
Okay, so
what do you mean by that?
So it'd be conceptually true insofar as when you have a being who experiences time, and we're invoking a theory for that being, and they experience a sequence proper to God, if he does not experience that sequence, and everything is actualized already, then once you make the statement that God condones something, and to condone is a passive act, or he doesn't intervene, or he instantiates something at that point in time, the predicate for that is going to be based on the conception of the person.
Yeah,
not
but
going to be based on
we're
perceptual
throwing
category.
away the temporal notion of the definition. You're just not focusing on the actual facts of the matter.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
facts of the matter are going to be proper to the predicate, so the predicate is just going to be you.
Yeah, so no, you're not explaining to me like if it's true that um God chooses in the BTR time, God chooses not to interfere with the violation, and it's true that God punishes the violator. I don't understand how it's not true in the absolute sense. Because
Yeah,
I'm talking from the absolute sense.
in an absolute sense, it's already so in absolute sense, judgment's already been passed, and if that's the case, then
Is
all
it true that okay? So Kai, is it true that from God's perspective, um, Lincoln is both alive and unalive?
it would be true in like T1 and T2.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
So like
but that wouldn't
God is
like
like,
negate T2. Like T2 is still true.
well, yeah. So like at some point, God is like condoning like people getting raped, given T1, and so like T1 could be like, um, God's not doing anything for like people getting raped by Roman Catholic priests, but then T2 is that revelation. He comes and like, unalives or like punishes all the people who raped people. So like I'm kind of
Yeah, so like the issue I'm having is that the word itself condone. You already admitted that it was a passive word. So
yeah.
if
So
God
like
is pure
Hey,
actuality, what I'm
Kai.
arguing in this case, however, is that if what I'm arguing is that if God is pure actuality, there's not going to be any passivity, meaning that in time in T1 and in T2,
Kai,
these
this
things are almost
obfuscation is
these things
so
are going to
obnoxious.
be.
You're just
Wait,
look.
what is the
It's
obfuscation?
well, you can look it up if you want, but you're just like
No, what it no,
confusing the
like point it
subject.
out. Point it out.
You're going into all this stuff about metaphysics. I've been listening to it for like I don't even know how long now, like 30 minutes or something, and none of it's fucking relevant at all. See, look, the point is you can go on about like passive or active, however you want, but like it's passive to the grape or confusion or evil acts of other sorts, right? It's relative. So he can be active in some other sense, relative to some other things that he's active or doing, right? But he's passive with respect to letting this grape and so on happen, right? And you keep bringing up all metaphysics about time and stuff, but if it is the case that God has ever intervened and can ever intervene, then why is he not intervening about these things as they occur?
to be
Okay,
Or
so
honest.
even before they
you said you were listening for about however long. So if you're listening for so long, how did I define God?
I mean, like,
I don't
No.
remember.
Let him speak because I want to jump and talk. So how did I define God since you were listening?
well, yeah, no, actually, answer his point, right? Like, no offense, but yeah, like we've been kind of like going all over the place, and like the point we're trying to make, right, is like from our viewpoint, like people are getting raped. God's not doing anything about it. It's kind of passive from our viewpoint. I don't really care too. Like, I'm not trying to be rude, but I don't really care too much about like he's eventually going to do something in Revelation and from like some different perspective. But like as of right now, in our like linear timeline, he's not really doing anything. And God basically looks at somebody who's about to get raped, and he says, "I can either do something or not do something." And for some reason, he's choosing that not doing something for now is a better option.
Well, it's not something for now would just be you would step out of the internal critique because if I'm holding to B theory, there is not a before and after. So
That
when I
fits
talk
with
about
B
T1,
theory. Look, because even if you're
hold on,
looking
let
at
me
the block
finish.
from
Let me
outside, I already
finish.
know
Let
your
me.
point. You've said this
You
at
don't even
least
know
three
you don't
times.
even know the point I'm making because it's still being confused. All I'm saying is that if it's the case, if B theory is true and God exists outside of space and time, within the facts of T1 and T2, these aren't moments of before and after. Therefore, it's not any type of passivity since God is pure act. So it would be improper to say that God condones something. Condoning is a word used for passive means and not active means. So you're just improperly implying the definition.
Okay, does God act to stop any grape in 2025?
In a relative sense, like just from my perspective.
Yeah, from our perspective.
Yeah, from my perspective, it wouldn't be absolutely the case, or it would be relatively the case that God is a preventer.
Yeah, so God's not preventing it from like our perspective, and it would be like relatively the case. That's kind of like the argument that I'm making, right?
Yeah, but it's not proper predicated to God.
Like, okay, what per se is the issue?
The issue is once you predicate it to God, and if God is pure actuality, then the passivity wouldn't follow anymore if God is pure actuality. To be passive and to be purely actual, they're antithetical to each other.
Yeah, but like
I don't think you even understand what you mean when you say pure act. Like, you're misapplying it. Say
Oh
he's
my
pure
gosh.
act in the way that you seem to be using it would mean that God is groping me right now. Like, that would be because all actions
What are
are
you
always
talking about?
happening by God. In the
Yeah,
way
What are
you're
you talking
using
about?
it, like, there's always something that God is not doing. He's not doing all things all the time, right?
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
like
Wait.
yeah,
So
like
hold on. What do you think
yeah,
pure act is? You're talking about it. You don't even know what it is. I
wait,
define
You
it for
just
you.
said
But
you
what do you
just
think it is?
said if there's something that God is not doing that's improper to
guys,
predicate on him because
hold
he's
on.
pure act. So you can't
Yes,
say
he's
there's
pure
something
act,
he's
so he's
not doing.
always acting. Once he
Guys,
stops acting,
wait, talking, stop. Okay, yeah, God is pure act, but like my understanding is that he's pure act when he acts. He's not always doing something, right? So like, I, there might be some confusion here. Like I don't really understand that. Is God always doing something? Clearly, he's not. Right?
Well, it's more when the Christians say God acts. There is no doing. There's no temporal notion. I think that's what Kai is really trying to harp on. Is that we're using this kind of temporal notion to talk about God. We're saying, I'm saying, all right, let's throw away this temporal language. It's true that God, that's in from God's perspective, and God instantiates this will. It's true that there was no act to stop the violation, and it's true that there was that the act to punish the violator equally exists simultaneously in the same way that Abraham is alive and unalive, T1 and T2. These are both true propositions that's instantiated. I could care less about the temporal definition we are using for this, but that's the point that's being made here.
no, Bobby. Actually, no, Bobby. Thank you for clarifying that because when I say pure act, I'm saying that insofar as that in this perspective of God, if we have T1 and T2, those things are instantaneous when it comes to the mind of God. However, in a sense, they're also existing within a temporal framework. God doesn't exist within that temporal framework himself. So it's not anything that is like particularly like sequential when it comes to God. So there's no I think that like the host seems to imply passivity here. I'm saying that if were to invoke a passivity, you're by definition making God immutable because that opposes pure act.
Yeah, but
Well, dude,
that's
it's to say
definitionally true. That'd be
it's
the
just
by
to
based on.
say that there's
I
some
mean,
act that he's
like
not currently doing, right? Like,
yeah, God can
Contradiction.
choose.
That would be
Yeah, yeah.
contradiction. I'm arguing for.
no, that's what I was trying to
Yeah,
say
but
before. To say he's pure act doesn't mean he's doing all the things that are possible all the time, right?
it just means he
That's not what I'm
acts.
saying.
Yeah, so that implies that there's some actions that he's not doing
Yeah, I
now.
guess
Like,
Yeah, like me and God are on the same page. So like,
isn't it like I understand pure act, like even God's actions are either from at least from the agent's perspective, the relative's perspective, his actions are either in a state of potentiality or actuality.
Yeah.
They've all been instantiated. It's like pending or already happened kind of thing.
Yeah, like being caught up here is like the passivity point because I understand what you're
Well,
saying.
because I know the bit is that if you're using temporal language, then the argument is valid. I'm saying that okay, we can avoid like using temporal language, and it still doesn't follow that Coco's point isn't right because your whole argument is hinging on us using temporal language.
yeah,
Yeah, I see. Well, I guess I can go with the fact that if you're like just appealing to like a relative of like a modality, then I would say that the propositions of those facts would be like true, right? Like in the case of like the absolute modality would just be false. So it's just like just completely different categories. Like it's the condoning portion that I'm kind of still not understanding here. Like when you say that God condones something and condoning is passive, and at the same time God is pure act, then could you like answer the question of like if God is pure act, how could then he at the same time be passive at any point in time?
I tried to
Well, okay,
explain
so
that
like
already.
pure act is pure act is not. I don't think pure act means that God is like acting all the time. I think that's the confusion. Pure act is more so describing like how God goes about things, I think. Right? Like God is not like sitting and thinking about what he's gonna do. God is just pure act. He just does when he needs to do things, right? It's just his nature to do good and moral things. He just acts, right? It doesn't mean that he's always acting. So essentially there can be periods in time, like our linear timeline, where God doesn't act on certain things, and then of course, from like a B theory of time, past, present, and future is all mushed together, and technically God has done everything. I don't know. This is pretty convoluted.
Yeah, I don't mean to be.
conversation.
I don't mean. I'm sorry if it seems like I was trying to like obfuscate, and it was just because I was like reiterating like so many times. But I put that issue on me, not you guys.
I know your contention was mostly on like temporal language used for like an active kind of being. But I still mean at that point it just feels like you just like throw away all that temporal language. It's true that you know um, this violation did occur.
Yeah, but I mean, just with that being said, I to give you a follow. I do intend on like following your lives a couple more times, but I do appreciate the content you post up, man.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah, and come back anytime. Also, like sometimes we have like more simplistic conversations, but also like
Can
sometimes like
can I
we get
say
into the
something before he leaves?
yeah, definitely. But yeah, like, sometimes
Col-
it's always good to like get into philosophy sometimes. But yeah, I'm totally down. Go ahead, Fluff. It's an honor to have you.
Hi guys, Colossians 2:8.
Colossians 2:8.
Colossians 2:8. You're not supposed to engage in philosophical and universal theories when discussing God or Jesus in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Utilizing an outside of space and time concept for God is blasphemous and radical.
Yeah.
It's over.
Once you leave the planet, once you leave the confines of heaven and earth for God, and start going into your universal concepts and principles, theories, and not going by the elemental principles of Christ and God Himself, the deity, you have moved into heretical territory. You are not allowed to discuss God this way as Christianity, at all.
Okay, wait.
So when you look at it that way, right? Then the other reason why it came up was because of the misdefinition of the word condone. God and Jesus both, in fact, not only condone but endorse.
Oh.
Jesus himself had slaves. God commands slavery. Jesus himself did not care about consent. God doesn't care about consent for those that have a lower monetary value than men. Both Old Testament and New Testament.
Question. So, what's the distinction between descriptions that merely describe the principles given by Christ and the principles themselves?
Breaking that down to English.
Yeah. So, what's the separation?
Did you just ask me?
What's the separation between the two that make them antithetical to each other?
What did I compare?
So you said I'm not supposed to be using philosophy, in which that's just going to come down to your interpretation of that.
I gave you a verse.
Yeah, which has your interpretation. Which has your
interpretation. Did you read it?